God damn it.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. Ain't the truth? No, set you free.
No, it's fine.
I know you got little kids, so I thought, oh, he's gonna be up anyways.
No. Usually I am. My wife is taking the kids to a friend's house today.
Oh, nice.
And it's really funny because she woke. I had my alarm set and everything, but I was like snoozing because I was having this great dream, and she came and woke me up, and I was like, I'm having an amazing conversation right now with Barack Obama.
Oh, nice.
Like seriously, it was so real, and I was having this. I don't even remember what we're talking about now. It's confidential.
Oh, that's a shame. That's a shame, man.
But like, she literally woke me up, and I was like, I was just talking to Obama, and it was like, and he totally. I tried to go back to sleep, so talk with him some more.
Yeah, that's right. I know I've done that before too. I've woken up in a dream and been like, oh man, wait, let me just try to go back to sleep so I can. You know, I was like in whatever, like a lightsaber battle or something. I'm like, I need to finish that dude or whatever. You know.
Hey man,
I've done the same thing.
We're already on a roll. Let's do this thing.
Let's
hey
do
everybody,
Let's do it.
Welcome to another episode of Face the Truth. I can't wait to talk with this guy. Let's just get into it. He's an awesome artist. He's a great instructor, a funny dude. I've had one really fun time hanging out with him in California about a year and a half, 2 years ago, whatever.
Yeah, man.
Really fun dude. And so let's get into it. Let's welcome everybody, Jonathan Hardesty.
Let's do it. We're doing it like the pandemic, like COVID style. There's no one here. We're just imagining that. Yeah.
Get into it.
Yeah.
Elbows, mask.
That's
I have a mask here just in case my guests feel uncomfortable. I can put this on while we talk, you know.
Right. That's right.
You never know. Sometimes they're like, hey man, you don't look so well. So
I know I've posted like old footage, you know, on like Instagram account or whatever. Like I remember like during the height of it, like I posted, they're like, where are your masks? And I'm like, this is from a year and a half ago. I'm like, don't, you know, like, don't.
Isn't
get
it
mad.
weird? Like even when I watch movies and I see people like having a good time in a restaurant, I'm like, ooh, that doesn't look good. Right. You know, it's not. I don't think that's working.
But you know what,
strange,
though,
man.
Like my son and I, we do training at we trained at an MMA gym in Pennsylvania, and then we just actually started up in the new one here in Texas. And it's funny because I was like thinking when I went to this new one here in Texas, I was like, I should probably wear my mask when I go in. I was like, no, because we're about to sweat in each other's mouths. Literally, I was like, there's kind of no point. Like,
wait, so you're in Texas now? Yeah,
so I'm in Texas. I don't know if I've caught you up with all that.
Let's go. Where are you in Austin?
No, I'm not in Austin, but I'm not near Joe Rogan. I could probably see his house from here, though. The one he bought with
everyone seems to be moving to Austin. It's crazy.
Yeah, Austin's cool. Austin's definitely cool.
Yeah.
It's different. I'm in Dallas. My wife's family are here, so
okay.
we're like 5 minutes from all them. We tried to coordinate it, and we kind of got in at the right time because we moved at the end of last year, or we bought our house at the end of last year. We moved in like at the beginning of this year, and there are literally no houses here. Now, if we wanted to buy one, forget it. Like, I mean, realtors like it. I mean, people are bidding like $90,000, you know, over the asking price and stuff. Like people are coming from California, they sell their like LA apartment for like 1.5 million or something, and then they come down here, they're like, oh, it's a $900,000 house. They're like, yeah, whatever, I'll offer $1 million, no problem, you know.
Dude, I have really good friends that live in San Antonio, and they used to live here, and then my friend's wife is from there, so they moved back, and now they have kids. They have 3 kids already. It's crazy. And we went there for the wedding, and every year we try to go and hang out with them. But I love it. Yeah. San Antonio is such an awesome place. The people,
it's food, cool. Everything. It's really cool. Yeah.
Cool art town and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go to Austin when I'm there, usually just to check it out. But I love Texas, but it's like I don't understand how people can actually live there, because I mean,
with the heat.
Yeah, because I mean, it's it's crazy. People are really nice. I love all the pickup trucks. Pretty cool.
Right.
It seems like there's like some kind of gang going on. I don't know, but I love the like no taxes on like we went to the
that was a
grocery
big
store.
motivator for me.
Oh man, I thought it was going to be like $200 worth of groceries, and it was like $60 or something. Like, this is insane.
Yep.
But the heat in the summertime, I don't understand. We got to my friend's house, and he's like, "Come on in," and I go into the house, and he's not in there. I'm like, "Where the heck is he?" And it was so hot outside. He's out back in the hotness with his shirt open, wearing shorts, and his kids are playing, and he's got a beer. He's got a big white cowboy hat on, and his feet are just in the pool. He's like, "This is how we do it." I'm like, "Why don't you do it inside with the AC?"
Right.
Why are you doing this? He's like, "Oh, you'll get used to it." I'm like, "No, man, I don't understand." And one time we went to some restaurant, and it was baking outside, just like sizzling. We went inside, the sun was going down, and it was a really good Mexican restaurant. And when we were all done, the sun was down. It was nice outside. It was starting to cool a little bit. And I went outside, and I was waiting for everyone to get out of the bathroom. And I leaned on the brick wall, just to lean, and I burned my arm.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And it was dark outside.
Yeah. Dude, it radiates heat. So I'm like, we moved, in the winter, and what was so weird is I felt like I was back on the East Coast because like that cold front hit here. We lost power, and we like lost our water here actually. And a bunch of people did. We were okay, we were fine, but I was like, okay, well, the pipes are starting to freeze. I was like, we just got to turn the spigots on, I felt like I was right back in bad winter in Pennsylvania. I was like, where's my wood stove?
It's been that's weird, man. That is kind of, I can't believe, because we had a crazy winter here as well, and it just like the whole country just got hit with like, it's like Pandy's not enough for you. Bam.
Well, I took a screenshot on my phone and sent it to my family because they were already mad that we were like, my family in Pennsylvania were mad that we were moving to Texas. And so I sent them that, and they were like, yeah, that's what you get. Like, because it said 0 on my phone, but then the next week it was like 72 or something. And it was so weird, man. It was very odd. Like it was really funny. Everybody said, "You brought the cold with you." I was like, "I know, I'm sorry."
It is crazy. Yeah. But how's it been with I mean, it's so crazy. Everything seems surreal, really.
Yes.
And everyone's been dealing with things differently.
Right.
But how has it been for you this past year with everything?
It's been okay. I mean, I think for me, that choice, like a long time ago, like where I was doing like the classical side of things, and I was like, you know what, I want to dip my foot, like this is like 8 years ago or something, like into the digital side. I was like, I want to start doing illustrations. I want to start doing that kind of thing. That choice, now when I see like that diversification or whatever, I was like, I really like this stuff. I want to try to. I'm glad I did that, because no one would have been going to the galleries. Nobody would have been. I mean, everything shifted to online like so fast. And so for me, because I had, the teaching with Schoolism and the different things that I did, I felt bad because it actually started to get a little bit better for me during that time, because everybody was forced to learn from their computers at home. So that actually kind of helped me, and so it was a weird, it's funny because I remember before that too, there was some time where there was like a economic downturn as well, like a real bad economic downturn. I can't remember what year it was, but it was actually when my wife and I were in Texas the first time. So it had to be over like probably like 10 or 12 years ago, whatever it was. And a bunch of my friends lost their jobs, and everybody was really struggling. And for some reason, like I started doing better at that time too. So like, I feel like I don't know what it is about artists, but I feel like that's happened to a bunch of people, like artists. Maybe we're just, I guess we adapt, or we just figure it out, or maybe it's just the nature of, I would think that we're the first ones to go. Like we're the first ones to,
I mean,
to be left
for
off.
me, it got really, really slow. Like,
oh, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I've kept enough work but like, it's been some months I've been like, okay, hopefully someone calls or something.
Right.
So it's but then I've gotten a few huge jobs,
Right.
like, where it helps me opens up some doors for some other jobs, but it's been slow. Like, it's been nerve-wracking, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's starting to pick up more, and I'm starting to feel like I got a few jobs that I feel really happy about. So that's good. So I can kind of like
Awesome.
breathe a little bit.
Yeah, I hate that feeling, man. I hate that feeling. Like, we're feast or famine, and
Dude.
we're so used to that. Like, I mean, and it's funny because like people will say, well, what do you make on average per month? And I'm like, dude, I don't. What's the like? How long of a period of time do you want me to average that? Because like 1 month it might be $15,000, and then the next month it's zero. So it's like, so it's just one of the, I know. And then people don't pay you on time, and so you're waiting.
That is my biggest thing, because it's really, really funny, because I don't want to sound pretentious or anything, but I'm going to.
Do it. Just own it, man.
Yeah, it's.
In your dream, you were talking to Obama. You can.
I almost felt like posting today. Questions for Barack Obama, because it's April Fool's. I was like he's my guest next week. People might believe it, because I've actually had some pretty big guests on. So like for example,
he might want to talk to you. Seriously, you've kind of dipped your toe in the political arena. I think you guys would have a good conversation.
I would love to. I'd love to talk to Trump, man. That'd be awesome,
dude. I know, right?
But
both on.
But I mean, it's like I understand that I've got a reputation. I'm known. It's funny. I'm famous in a way because people know of my work. And I was just talking with a friend of mine. I'm like, but I'm not the good kind of famous. I'm not like rich famous. I've told my friend that, like, I've been in New York, and someone is like, dude, are you Jason Seiler? And like that was crazy. And I'm like, I am. Like, you want to buy me a cup of coffee? Like,
right.
And it happened to me a couple times in Europe. So that's a weird thing, right?
That's never happened
because my bank account is not famous, right?
Right.
I got a very non-famous bank account. But a lot of people assume that I must be like just rolling with it,
Right.
And it's really funny, because I try to be really open and honest on this podcast, because I want people to understand the life of an artist, and that's the whole point of this podcast. And there are times when I'm like, we're doing great, and then there's times where I'm like, I don't know what's happening. But the worst part about being an illustrator is that you're working, and usually I'm always working. That's the thing, is people
me too.
They see me putting things out and all this stuff,
right?
But there's nothing coming in, and it's because, like, you might do a painting or 2 paintings or 3 paintings for different clients, and then you got to wait 8 weeks or more, and you're like, man, there's times you have to call and be like, hey,
right, you have anything, or do you,
or what's been happening lately, which I feel really lucky about, is I'm starting to get to the point now where I'm starting to get bigger jobs, where I'm more like advertisements type stuff, which is really what I've been trying to get to. Because that's great, because they pay way better, and it's
hopefully more on time, right?
And it's harder work, but I really enjoy it. I enjoy that kind of the collaboration and everything. But now I'm getting to the point where my agent, I'm like, 50% up. That's the way we got to do it, and I've never understood why it should always be that way. We're artists,
right?
Like, it's the weirdest thing. I've never understood. I've been doing this for almost 20 years now. And for years I was with my agent going like, why can't we get 50% up? This is ridiculous.
Right.
Because I have,
100%.
And I have 2 days to paint a cover for them.
Yep.
And then I paint the cover, and millions of people see it, or if it's like time or whatever it is. And I'm still like wondering how I'm going to pay my bills. Like, that's not cool.
It's totally, and your skill level and where you're at and how good you are too. Like, I mean, for sure. Like, they should feel like, we need to, like, they should feel like, yes, we have to do that. He's not like, if I was somebody at like a magazine or whatever, I'd be like, well, no, I mean, he's the real deal. Like, you gotta pay him. You gotta do, I wouldn't.
Yeah, but I understand. But same with you though. I mean, but the thing is, that's what we go through as artists, is that, I mean, like I said, it is changing for me a little bit. Like, the more of the jobs I'm doing, Like for example, I'm working on a book right now that I'm really excited. I'm having fun with it. It's like a cover. It's like a wraparound, and then it's 5 paintings inside.
That's awesome.
But I'm getting, I had it worked out, so I get like a little up front for starting it, and then I get a little bit when the sketches are finished, and so it's like broken apart. So that way it's like, I don't, because if I had to wait to the very end to get paid for that, I'd be like, dude, I have to take on like 20 other jobs just to get by.
Just to make it through that period of time. Yeah. See, that's the thing. Like, it's the same with portrait commissions, right? I've done portrait commissions, and I did the same thing. And then I got to the point where I said, no, it has to be half up front. And that actually weeded out a lot of people.
Yeah.
Where they would be like, well, I can't do it. I was like, I'm not doing it. I was like, I'm not touching a paintbrush until you give me half. I'm not even going to continue the conversation. I'd be like, we can talk more if you're serious. I was like, I would talk about the initial things and stuff, but it just got to the point where, because you know how it is, like there's people, and then the people that are going to do it just say, oh yeah, whatever. I mean, I remember one guy, he wanted a massive painting. And so, I mean, he just wanted this big painting, and it was like all these like character studies of his family and stuff. It was a cool it was a really cool thing. But I was like, this is going to be like 15,000 or like 20,000 or something. Like, this is a lot of materials. This is a lot. And he's like, oh, that's fine. He's like, that's fine. I'm like, I wish I could say, that's fine. I'll just write it. I was like, but
did I say 50, 20? I meant like 50,000.
Right. Exactly.
That's what I meant.
Right. I know. Like, dang it. I know. But it's one of those things where the people that can do it just do it, and the people that can't, then there's all this back and forth. And so when you make it's counterintuitive as an artist, I think, because we need to eat, but when you make it harder up front, it ends up being better for you in the long run. Like I used to have people come up to me and like at a show or something, they say, I want you to paint my mom or something. You have the same thing, I'm sure. Like people, so then you have like clients that are not paying you. And then you have people don't understand. They don't know. They just like your work. They're just interested. It's not their fault. They don't know, but they're like, I want you to paint my mom, or I want you to paint and I'm like, okay. I always tell them, I say, listen, I said, tell whatever you're thinking. I said, think of what you're going to pay me. I said, and times it by 20. I said, when you times it by 20, I said, that's where we're starting, and I was like, so you want to portrait your mom, right? Like an 18 by 24 oil. And they're like, yeah. And I said, all right, so you want to pay me what, like $100, $200 or whatever? I was like, yeah. I was like, nope, $4,000 is where it starts. I was like, that's, so they were like, for real. And what's funny is it would weed all that out. But I would even have some people react like, I remember like having small still lives, and I was like, listen, there's so much time with this. There's the setup. There's this. I was like, these are all the hours. This is what I was like, you would basically be paying me like $1 an hour, if I did it this way. And so, and they would go away and kind of be like, well, that's expensive. But a lot of those people have come back and said, hey, I saved up for the painting. And then it's a shame though, because the people that really care about our work, that really understand it and know it, they usually don't have all of that disposable income. I mean, the amount of times I've heard like, oh yeah, this will go really good with my drapes or something when someone buys a painting. And I'm like, I have this whole conversation with them about what I did technique wise and how I threw myself, and they're like, oh, this will go great with my drapes. And I'm like, dang it. I'm like, it's fine, you can feed my family, but gosh, that's like,
yeah, it is funny. I mean, one thing that I've thought about before is, because I mean, there are some paintings, that I see that I'd be like, oh man, I'd love to have that painting. But it's funny that I make a living creating art, but I never want to buy it. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm always like, that's crazy that someone wants to buy that.
Right.
Someone wants to, because for me, I'm like, dude, I got other things that I want to spend my money on.
Right.
I don't want to spend my money on something that looks nice in my, like a painting, it's cool. I mean,
so true.
Like, if you want to give it to me,
right,
I would love to have it.
Right.
Or
right.
I'm like, let's swap paintings or, something like that. But I can't picture spending that kind of money on a piece of art. So, thank you for those people that do that. That's amazing. But I've always been kind of confused because, and it's always amazing. I'm always like, whenever I get like a nice commission, I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I feel like I'm getting away with something,
right.
Like
it's true. But if you think about it though, like this is the way that I would always think about it. Like someone would come into the gallery, and like let's say I did like a big landscape or something, right? So they'll be like, I could see it. It's like a guy that's like a lawyer or something like that or whatever, and he'd be talking to me about the painting. And the gallery owner would come over afterwards and be like, that guy's worth like $150 million. I was like, well, thanks for telling me that now. I was like, I'm glad I talked to him without being nervous beforehand, you know. but the guy would come over and talk about the painting and stuff. And it was like all about the story of like, he wanted to know the story of what was going on and what I was thinking. And I realized at that point, I thought, this guy's probably stuck in an office. And so he's paying basically to get access to that experience I had, right? So I'm trying to convey that experience through the painting, and the story enhances that and all of that. But I'm the one that got to experience it. I'm the one that was there. I was outside then, you know, and I saw it, you know, and so I think there's a lot of that. So when they buy a commission, like we're saturated with it, right? So like we look at each other's work, we look at we're like saturated with art. And so when somebody's like, you have some extra money, you're not like, I'm going to go, you just are always thinking. I mean, what I would like to buy is something that I could look at and learn from every day. Like one of the old masters works. If I could do something like that, like have a sergeant in my house or something like that, I would be like looking at it every day or something, you know, but it's different and I would buy something to help my fellow artists as well.
Yeah. If I was rich, like rich, I would definitely buy artwork. There were sculptures I would buy. There's like, I mean, for sure. I know so many artists that I would love to be able to give them money so I could have one of their pieces.
Well, maybe that's what they're thinking. Maybe that's what they're thinking. Maybe that's the difference. We're just not rich and they are. I don't know.
You know what's crazy? One time I was at friends of my wife's father's, really nice people that had this awesome house downtown Chicago, and they're all excited. They knew I'm an artist. I actually did, I think, 1 or 2 drawings of them of their dogs. Like they love their dogs, and I did cool. Like a pencil drawing and stuff.
Right.
And one time I was at their house, and everyone's just like sitting around having some wine and talking. I had to go to the bathroom, and I was like, "Which bathroom should I use?" And they're like, "Oh, you know what? Why don't you go upstairs to our where our bedroom is and use the bathroom up there? I want you to check out what's in the bathroom up there." And I'm like,
that's a weird request, right?
Yeah, like what am I gonna see? Like
right.
And so I go up there, and I go to the bathroom, and I'm like looking around, and I'm like, what the heck? And as I'm peeing, I look straight forward, and there's a drawing, and it says Picasso.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, no, what the what?
And they put it in the bathroom right above the toilet. That's hilarious.
And I went downstairs, and I was like, Picasso? And they're like, oh yeah, we thought you would really, that'd be, something you'd really like to see. And I'm like, I was peeing. And there's a Picasso, like an original Picasso drawing. And I'm like, and they're, they have money.
Right.
I'm like, how did you get a Picasso drawing? This is crazy. And it was pretty cool. I mean, awesome. I couldn't believe it. It's really weird. Have you ever been to the Society of Illustrators in New York?
Yes. Yeah. So, but it was a while ago. It's been a long time. Yeah.
You like
over 10 years.
And you're walking up the stairs, and there's like Norman Rockwell drawings. And you go to the bar, there's a Rockwell painting behind the bar.
Yep.
And one of the first times I was there, same kind of thing happened. I was peeing in the bathroom, and there's Montgomery flag drawing. Like right while you're peeing, there's I'm thinking like little particles can come up in the air and different things. There's a Montgomery flag drawing. It's like, geez. Yeah.
The other feeling I got that feeling at the Brandywine Museum, because right where I lived in Pennsylvania, right near there was Chad's Ford. So like NC Wyeth, like Powell, like they had not Powell. I mean, well, yeah, Powell too, but Pyle, like and just so many good artists, and even Andrew Wyeth's stuff is just amazing, I think. And so going in there, there's like every corner you turn, and they had like Landeckers in there. They had like all this stuff, and just seeing it in person, I was like, well, there it is. Like, it's you never do. You always see it on searches, and it is amazing to see. And I know I went to a buddy's house in Canada, and I go down. He was an artist, and I was like, is that a Loomis? Like a Loomis, like a Loomis or whatever? He said, yeah, that's a Loomis. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, it was like an actual painting, a Loomis. And he goes, oh yeah, look at the bottom right. And it had all this water damage. And he goes, I bought it. He's like, because I can look at the painting. He goes, it has water damage. So everybody devalued it. He said, but I got it for like $500. I was like, what? So because nobody wanted it because it was damaged. But I said, well, he said, yeah, it's great, right? You know, I said, yeah, it's amazing. I said, how cool is that? You know,
it's weird that somehow it's not worth anything because it's damaged. I mean, one of my favorite, I've told this before to people and probably on this podcast, but one of my favorite art experiences was while I was going to art school. There was a Toulouse-Lautrec show at the Chicago Art Institute, and I didn't know anything about Toulouse-Lautrec at all. But one of my instructors brought us all there, and I was okay. I'm not like technically blown away, or you know, I'm not like, whoa, you know,
right.
This guy was just a mind-blowing artist. But there's something about the aesthetics of it, the fact that he was there in person at these brothels and different things, and also there was something about the raw organicness of the like painting with oil on cardboard, like actual cardboard with creases, and, and there's something about it that he felt so much more real to me than any other artist thing that I've seen. Like, and then at the very end, the coolest part about this, and was that there was a painting of Van Gogh that he did on cardboard, like a small, like I'm talking like the back of a cereal box, like cardboard. And then right next to it was a same thing, another cardboard painting that Van Gogh did of him, and they're dated the same day and at a cafe. So these two guys, it was the most real, awesome. Like they hung out at a cafe together and painted each other on cardboard. And it was just like, wow, like that is so cool. Van Gogh was so real all of a sudden, and Toulouse-Lautrec, and it's like, they're just like me.
Right.
You know,
totally.
And I all of a sudden I felt like I connected, you know, and we got back to the classroom, and I was so pumped and inspired, and I just started drawing. We had a model there, like this 80-year-old Polish lady or Russian lady, I can't remember. I painted her way too many times. I'm scarred, scarred for life. But I started drawing whatever I wanted. My teacher was like, "Oh, we're supposed to be drawing the model," and I was like, I told her, I said, I'm pumped right now. I'm just creating, and she was like, "Cool," you know, like. It was like so cool, and I was drawing the lady, but I was like pushing her features.
Right.
I totally, you know, like in art school, you know, you do like these really, you're supposed to do these real specific tight charcoal drawings and all this. I was doing that technique on toned paper with black and white charcoal, but I was exaggerating the form and pushing things.
That's awesome.
And the model hated it. She saw it. She did not like it. But
perfect.
But she looked more like her because it was exaggerated a little bit and pushed.
That's right.
But the funny thing was my teacher made me write down, you know, I don't want to get in trouble for this. So just write down there, inspired by Toulouse-Lautrec or something like that.
Like after Toulouse-Lautrec or whatever, something like that. Yeah.
Which it not really wasn't. Toulouse-Lautrec didn't do this kind of style, but it was a really cool experience, you know. It's amazing when that happens, I think, you know.
Totally.
Like when I was younger and I would go to art museums with my dad, I didn't get it, you know. And my dad would stand in front of paintings. I remember him standing in front of
my kids are gonna say this about me too.
Well, my dad would stand in front of I remember it was I think it was a Caravaggio painting. It was something like the Judas beheaded or something.
Oh yeah, I know that one. I know that one.
And I think it was we're in the Minneapolis Art Museum.
Or John the Baptist beheaded, right?
John the Baptist.
Yeah. Judas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But it's like a really black painting, and then like out of the darkness.
I know. I know which one.
I remember my dad standing there crying. Just he was crying, and I was so confused. And I'm like, first of all, we're standing in front of this painting for way too fucking long. Like I can draw this painting from memory. I've been looking at it. I don't understand it. It's you know, and I was crying, and I remember like asking him like, "What's wrong?" And he was just like, because he's an artist, and he was looking at it from a completely different perspective of he understood what it took to create that, especially then.
Right.
So now I feel like that, like when I go and I see a Rembrandt and I get to go right up to it, it's like, dude, I'm standing where Rembrandt stood.
Right.
And
especially when they duplicate the lighting, like it was probably there in the studio and stuff, and you really see it the way he was like, yeah, it's crazy, man. You know, I had that same experience at the museum where I did not like Renoir stuff. Like a lot of Renoir stuff, like, you know, he's like a well-known one, but I just didn't like it. Like I was like, you know, and so they had this whole like Renoir section, and I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna kind of skip that. And some people get really mad about hearing me say that, but it's like, but I just don't like it. I just don't like it. And so I don't know what to tell her, but it's like, you know, I don't like it. But I saw this one painting, and I was like, whoa. And I went over to it, and I started looking at it, and I'm looking at the rest of his work around, which looked like, some of it looked like children did it to me. And then I'm seeing this one, and it's like, like it was still somewhat loose, but there was so much care with it. And I mean, I was like, man, he was on it. Like, and I said, who was this girl? I said, I bet you he loved this girl. Whoever it was, he loved this girl. Well, sure enough, I don't know if it was written on there, or I went home and looked it up. I took a picture of it and went home and looked it up. It was like this girl that was, if I might be getting the story wrong, but I think she was like 13 or 14. And he met her, and that was the first time he had painted her. Well, he ends up marrying her later.
Oh, wow.
But this was like the moment of like attraction, you know, like love at first sight kind of a thing. So he paints her, like I think her parents wanted him to paint her, and then he kind of fell in love with her. But it was so different than the other paintings. Like it was so different. Like he was like locked in. He's like,
you can do a good painting when you focus.
Right.
You know, it's funny. I talked with Hollis Dunlap just a few weeks ago, or a couple weeks ago, and we got into this talking about you know, certain artists, and how I was saying it's okay to say that, you know, Monet or Manet suck. Like, I'm not saying they do. I'm just using those names right now. Okay?
That's right. Yeah. Right. I know people are gonna freak out. Manet was the greatest. Like, you know?
It's okay to like say that you don't like a certain painting just because like everyone else liked it doesn't mean that you have to like it.
That's right.
And
that's right.
And it's just funny because we were talking about, like, I was making you know, just basically saying how, you know, I can't even remember, to be honest, which artist it was, but it was an artist. We were talking about it in art school, and I was basically saying how that painting sucks, and and everyone got mad at me, and I explained why I think it sucks.
Right.
And I said, I'm sorry, but that artist was actually trying. Okay, it's one thing to be Picasso, who is a master and can draw and paint photorealistically if he wanted to.
Right.
And then he you know, he uses those skills to just explore, you know, that's what art is. But I'm telling you, this artist, he was actually trying to paint that woman, and it's terrible
and failed. Yeah.
And we're supposed to be like, oh wow, just because it's old, it's really good. No, it's terrible. And I said, like, if the painting was hanging in our hallway in a school, everyone would make fun of it. It's just not a good painting.
I know.
And like, it doesn't have good brush strokes. The palette was terrible. The soft edges, everything about it was terrible.
Yeah.
And so, and again, that's my opinion about that painting.
Right.
If you want to have a debate about it, we can have a debate about it. That's fine. But the funny thing is someone sent me a message saying, it's so unreal how little you know, or you basically revealed to all of us how you don't know anything about modern art.
Right.
And on and on to on me. And I just had to laugh at him, like, man, you didn't get it, did you?
That's really funny.
Yeah. I mean,
that's that like section of the art world, though. It's like, they think they have like special revelation. You know what I mean? So like, I'll say, like, you know what I mean? Like, so I have I always like to follow people when they're giving tours. I don't really say anything, but I just follow and listen to what the tour is saying about the paintings. Because like my dad was even talking to somebody at the Brandywine Museum, and I'm probably gonna mess up this story too, because he's the one that told it to me. But he was talking to Andrew Wyeth's daughter, right? And there was some painting that Andrew Wyeth did of a barn or something like that, and there was a bull, and it was unfinished on one side, right? So she was laughing with my dad, like, because my dad was like, well, what's the story with this? She said, well, all the art critics are saying this is like a deviation for Andrew Wyeth, and he like, you know, this wasn't normal for him to not finish a painting, and like he was trying to express this and that. well, she told my dad the story. The bull chased him out of the barn and chased him out 3 or 4 times. He's like, screw this. I'm not finishing this painting. Like, you know, he's like, I'll just leave it like this because that bull's going to kill me. That's reality, you know? And then you go and you hear them talk about stuff. And I've always said to people, I said, look, I don't mind any kind of painting. I don't care if it's just a stripe on the canvas, but you can tell when someone does it well. Once you understand design principles, once you've studied all that stuff, you know the difference between good design and just somebody that's being really crappy. And I'm like, just because it's so ambiguous that no one knows what it means, that doesn't make it deep. Like ambiguity doesn't equal depth, you know? It's like the more ambiguous I can make it, the more no one knows what the heck is going on, the more deep it is. And I'm like, I just don't, I'm with you. Like there's a balance, because you can have classical art that is so boring and so dumb because it's just, let me just copy this. I'm just going to copy this. And it's like, you can put it right up next to it. And it's like, that's boring and dumb. That's the other extreme. But the other extreme is also like, what the heck does this mean? What is it? You know, and white canvas. And it's like, well, you know, but there's situations where a white canvas might be even like a political statement, or might be I mean, there's like situations where that might really make sense, but it's just, you know,
where I think it gets dumb. Like I agree with you. Like I'm all for every kind of art. Like if it's good, if it, you know, like some of the best conceptual art I've ever seen was at the Milwaukee Art Museum, and it was unexpected. One of the coolest things that I saw was like this. We walked into this long, huge room, and at the end, the whole wall was like, it just looked like clouds,
right?
Like real soft, transparent clouds. And I'm like, what? Is that just some giant like cotton thing? Like, what is that?
Right.
And you walk right up to it, and it still looks like clouds. And you're like, what is this thing? I mean, dude, this thing was so huge. It was like, I mean, it might have been 60, 70 feet tall. And
wow, that's crazy.
Massive. And you get right up to it, and it still looks like you could put your hand through it. And I get right up to it, and I realize it's all straws. It's the whole thing was straws. Just that's like crazy. Thousands and thousands and thousands of straws that they're coming out at different angles. And it just, but even when you're right up to it, it felt like you could put your hand through it. It was such a weird optical illusion.
That's really cool.
And I was like, man, that is just brilliant.
Right.
And like, there's a few pieces like that just, you know, it's unreal. But where I think things get dumb with it is like,
they staple their jeans to the wall and be like, you know, or something, or like, it's just.
It's like, I went to my wife's, she went to, like, it wasn't like an art school. It was like she's got a BFA in fine art, but it was like a college basically that offers art classes and everything. And you know how those classes are.
Yeah.
They want to throw shit at a canvas and talk about what that means.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
It means nothing.
Which they literally probably do that too.
Yeah, exactly. And I went to the show, she had a bunch of friends that were going and all this stuff. And we walk into the drawing room. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's a senior's final show.
Yeah.
And we're in the drawing classroom.
Yep.
And there was not one drawing at all. Not one. There was a pile of dirt on the ground with a poem next to it. There was like a map on the wall with like weird strings hanging from it with another stupid poem.
Right.
You know, and it's like, where's the drawings?
Right.
There was nothing. And yeah, it was very, very strange. And then the actual, and here's the thing, I'm all for conceptual and ideas.
Right.
But
don't do it in drawing class.
Yeah. But like, it's like, but like, you know, and like, even if I don't know, it's like, I want to see something that like shows that you have, you know, part of the thing about art that moves me is feeling or understanding the dedication of that person to their craft.
Right.
Like, you know, this person might not be the best artist, but man, they sure want to be, and they're working really hard. And, you know, and you can see it and you can feel it in their work. And you know, but when someone's just like painting a canvas pink and then they hang it in a museum and they just they write a whole thing about how, I don't know. It's just, I mean, everything, everything I was just thinking in my head to describe this was way better than what I've seen. So I cut myself off. I started thinking in my head, Jews don't like pigs. They don't eat pigs. So this painting is pink because this person is not Jewish, and they, I don't know. Like,
I know. Well, like, that's the thing, man.
What's
like
happening?
I know. Like I've talked to people a lot about this, and I always say, technique is like, well, I've encountered people that have actually said to me, like actually said, or I've read like, critics actually, like, they actually said this. They said, the more you try to learn about technique, the worse of an artist you become. And so like, they've literally said that. And so like,
you must be terrible then with all your little studies you do. Like, why are you wasting your time?
I know, right? I know. Because like, for me, I've always looked at my career as like, I'm not doing the work that I really want to do yet. Like, I'm not there yet. Like, I've got like the long view, and so I'm like, I feel like I'm still getting my legs underneath me, and honestly, like, legitimately, like, and I, like, maybe when I'm like 50 some or whatever, I'll be like, all right, now let's really start to, because I started a little bit later, and all that, but it's not that I can't do good work in the process or have fun in the process. But for me, art it's got to be about communication, right? So people that understand the language more will get more from it. But it's like a musician, right? So like, if you have these really, really good musicians, they will get something from another musician that, like, they will be like, oh my gosh, look at that time change and look at this and all that. Yeah. They'll be able to pick up on all that, where a normal person wouldn't. But if a normal person is repulsed by a song or reviled by a song, like, if you have to have that knowledge to even understand what the heck is going on, and even those people probably wouldn't even understand, then you failed. Like, so for me, I feel like if you're a visual artist, and the point of art is to communicate, doesn't always have to be positive. It can be negative. You can say the world sucks, and that's your painting. That's what you're trying to get across. You know what I mean? That it doesn't have to always be like a happy message or whatever, but it's all about communication. And so if you are confusing every viewer, like, if no one could possibly understand what your painting is about without you explaining it, and it's a visual art, you failed. Like, you failed. Sorry. Like, and so when 10 experts have 10 completely different, if you were to isolate them, and they have 10 completely different things that they, are getting, like, it's confusing. And this is what I was saying, is like, people confuse ambiguity with depth all the time. And I'm like, listen, I'm like, in depth, like, if a pond is deep, it's not just the deep part. Like, there's a surface part too that has to be recognizable, and has to be like, it doesn't have to be, I don't mean that you always have to have, like, figurative work, or you always have to, it doesn't matter, but there has to be some sort of, like you said, execution or level of, because, and the whole point is, technique is the vehicle for expression. Like, the better you get as a musician, the more you can make people feel what you're feeling. And so when you say go the other direction, you just repulse them. So like,
well, that's why weird. I think it's funny. Like, that's why when I was saying, like, I can tell as an artist that this painting that I was talking about before, like, I can tell that artist was being genuine.
Right.
And you're all thinking that he's amazing when he's actually not.
Right.
Like, not that painting. Like, right. Like, and it's funny too, because I love Van Gogh. But there are paintings of his that are just terrible.
They're dogs. Yeah, there's some dogs.
But I still like him for other reasons.
Right.
But people get pissed when you say that. It's like, it's so funny to me. I mean, dude, I've got so many bad paintings that I
totally.
And
totally. Me too. Not you. I'm saying I agree with you. I'm not saying yes. You totally do.
You have a lot of bad.
I haven't seen yours, what you're talking about, but I like all yours. But
well, I mean, there's like, you always find something with everything you do, and like, oh,
right,
that could have been way better or whatever. But
totally.
But I just think it's funny how, because an artist has reached a certain level of fame, or whatever, that just means that everything they do is amazing, and it's like, it's not really the case. And it's funny how people get about that,
I know.
It's so weird. And like, I'm not like, It's like even I think it was Hollis when we were talking. It was so funny, but it was refreshing because it's the first time I've ever heard an artist like rip apart Sargent.
Dude, I was just gonna tell you a story about how somebody got mad at me. So I was walking through a museum, and I don't know who it was. There's another artist, and I saw a painting of Sargent's. I was like, oh, he's mad about that one. And they were like, what? I was like, that one. He probably tried to hide in his studio, and they pushed it through. I was like, and there's not many. Yeah. I was like, listen, there's like, but I was like, I can't remember what painting it was, but I was like, that's not good. I said he botched that one, like, you know, and it looked like he abandoned it, and then just. Maybe he didn't. Yeah. And that's the thing. Maybe he probably, that was one of those paintings that he was probably going to repaint over it and do another one. And he's like, you know, he's rolling in his grave. Like, could you take that one out of the museum? Like, because there's some that are just like unbelievably, like, I know what he's capable of. So then I would see this one, you know, and so, I mean, his failure was better than my good painting, especially when I was first starting, like hands down. But I was like, in terms of who he was, I was like, no, that was like, compared to the rest, I was like, that's a dog of a painting. Like, that's not, and they got mad. They were like, how can you even say that? And I was like, look at it. I said, look at it. Like, it's not good. Like, I don't like that painting. It's not good. I was like, and that's not normal. I don't say that. But yeah, people are so afraid. It's like, it's, you know, they make mistakes. You know, they got mad at themselves. They hated their own work just like we do.
Exactly. I mean, it's really cool too. Like, another thing that I love is, you know, when you finally get to see a painting in person that you've like Sargent, for example, like the Madame X painting. Like I went so many years, I would go to the Met,
right,
and it was never there, and it would say that it was in France or it was somewhere, and I was like, damn, every time I come here it's gone. And then I think I finally saw it here in Chicago. There was a Sargent show, and it was such an awesome show, man. I just I couldn't believe some of the paintings, but the watercolors were just amazing. Like,
they're so sick. Like,
dude, the fact that he did them from life.
I can't even, like, I when I see those, I'm like, what?
I don't think that people talk about his watercolors enough. Like, that I have one of my favorite books is Sargent's watercolors. It's just so good. Just unreal. Like, when you squint your eyes, you almost feel like you're standing there. Like, the way he captures the light and everything.
Yeah. They're so good.
But I finally got to see the Madame X, and it's weird because it's not like it's this mind-blowing, like, you know, painting that, you know, is going to change the world of, you know, wow, look at everything is perfect. It's the story behind the painting.
Yeah.
And it's just so, every once in a while, an artist has a piece that just stands out. There's something about it. And that's one of those paintings where you're looking at it and you get up kind of closer and you're like, I completely can see how he did this.
Right.
And it makes it seem easy.
Right.
Because it's like, it's the same thing with Rockwell. Like, at the Milwaukee Art Museum, they've got a couple really cool Rockwells. And you can go right up to that thing.
Right.
Like, you can almost lick it. And I'm taking tons of photos, and I'm like zooming in. I want the canvas. Like, I want and it was amazing just to be like 5 feet away and be like, wow, that's an awesome little Rockwell. And it was a smaller painting, and it's like with this little girl and this old man. And it's just amazing to see it. But then when you walk up right up to it, it's like, wow, this is really not that big of a deal. Like, this is like, like, this is way simpler looking.
Right.
See it up close. Like, that's where his genius is like, when you look up close, I'm like, I'm breaking apart. Like, I know how to do it now.
You like that little section. You're like, I can take that home and do that little section or whatever.
Yeah. And I'm like, wow, look at how simple he painted. He just did this and this for the hair. And it's like, but when you step back, it looks different. It's like, that's what's amazing to me because I almost feel like maybe we're not doing it consciously, but we leave as artists, I think we leave breadcrumbs in our work for other artists. It's a communication. It's like, it's like I can look at
you do it on purpose sometimes. Yeah.
But I can look at one of your paintings and I can be like, all right, I see
Right.
what you're doing there.
Right.
That's cool.
Totally.
And you know, it's awesome. You know, and man, this has been a really fun talk. It's almost been 50 minutes already.
I knew we'd go over, man. I was like, we gotta just go.
It's fine. But this is a good time to talk about because I mean, you do so many, you do a lot of the classical stuff, which I think is awesome, because right there, it's like a, like we were talking about before, it's a dedication.
Yeah.
It's a passion to what you're trying to do is to create a toolbox and fill it with tools.
Right.
And in order to be able to do certain things, you have to learn how to do other things. Like it's, so painting a still life, and trying really hard to work in that like classical type way. It's not easy. It's a very difficult process.
Right.
And some people don't understand, why do artists do that? Well, it's because it's really challenging, and it's, and it's something that's gonna, I kind of think about it in a way where, I really miss painting from life. I just don't have the time to do that.
Yeah. I know. But it gets that way.
Yeah. But every single time I painted a model from life, was like when I was in art school, mostly. I wouldn't say that they were the best paintings ever. And I wouldn't even say that there were anything that I want to show people or anything, but every single one, I figured out how not to do things.
Right.
And when I went back to do my normal work, I was way better.
That's right.
It's like going to the gym. It's like, working things out. And
totally.
And that's a good setup for what I wanted to talk to you about, your little studies that you do. Like you've been doing these little studies. Would you mind just explaining what that is and what you're doing with that? Because I think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So like I said, I have like the long trajectory in mind. So for me, like and it's funny because people will often judge my career based on like where I'm at now. Like I think I've arrived or something. And it's like, no, I've had like a 40-year plan kind of a thing, for a while, and it's deviated a little bit. But my thought process at first was, okay, I actually went to a university and I was working at UPenn at the medical center, and I could get my master's for free there. But so I thought, I'll take a class or two every semester and I'll get my master's of fine art for free. And then I saw the master's thesis by all these people, and I was like, and I took a couple classes, and they were like, just express yourself. And I was like, listen, I get it. I was like, but I need to learn how to draw. Like I'm really bad. And they were like, well, just express yourself. It'll, we'll talk about that later. And they never did. So I just dropped it. And then my thought process was, okay, so let me start building this up from the foundation up. And so I started taking my classical training for that reason, where I thought, okay, this is like focused solely on technique. Like it's almost like emotionless a lot of the time, like the classical side. It is. I get why, a lot of people resist that. But I think there's an advantage to that. Just like a musician, it's like, let me learn music theory. Let me understand, like you might want to play blues, and eventually you're going to have to let go and have fun and just feel it. But it's a lot easier to diagnose what this other blues musician did and absorb it if you understand what they did. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You think, oh, they did this flat here and they would use this kind of vibrato. Oh, cool. I can incorporate that. If you understand how to diagnose it, you can absorb it better. So I started with that classical side, and then I fell in love with that. So it was like this detour sort of for a little bit. I was like, oh, I'll sell some paintings and I'll and so I started doing that, and I'm like, okay, man, it's been like 9 years or whatever, 10 years. And I was like, I should start doing something from imagination, and so then I'm like, I suck at doing things from imagination. And I was like, okay, so it's been that progression for me where I want to be really good, but I get interested in all these things, so I start pursuing them. So the studies that you're talking about, the texture studies, which is like individual studies of materials of different things. So my goal with that, basically what I do is I imagine myself as like a fighter or something, right? So I do mixed martial arts with my son. No, I mean, I don't fight him, but we both go to the same place. Yeah. Although very soon, I'm sure he'll get big enough to like whoop up on his dad. But the interesting thing about that is that there's all these different skill sets that have to come together. in order for that somebody to become like a all-around fighter or something. And that same sort of thing is kind of what I'm doing. So I look for a hole in my understanding, and then I go to try to fill that hole with studies or with very targeted exercise. So it's like you mentioned the gym, the whole idea of the gym, right? So if somebody wants to be able to move more quickly, like change direction more quickly, I'm sure that some personal trainer could say, here, you want to lift this type of weight, you want to do this thing, and this will give you like that quick action, you know, they'll give you. And so then you start doing that. When you first start doing it, you really suck at it, right? So you're like, but then you can get better at it. And then you say, okay, well, I've got this other flaw. So those texture studies were actually I like to set myself like big challenges too, you know? So this one was like, I was going to do 500 of these, and I didn't know what I was getting into when I first said that, but I'm sticking with it. But because then I was thinking, okay, they take like an hour sometimes each. So I'm like, that's 500 hours just like that. I'm like, that's a lot, you know? But but I realized that I didn't understand. I would see illustrators and concept artists and people like that do very quick paintings, very loose paintings, very simple, like you're talking about Sargent. And I was like, yeah, but it looks slimy, or it looks like, you know, like a fly's eye or something, or it looked like how did they know to do that? Like, how did they know to make like the snakes coming out of the water and it looks wet? And I'm like, it's not just the highlight. I'm like, because that doesn't work, you know? And so I was like, what is, and then I started thinking, what is the difference between wet and slimy? Like, can I describe that? And I was like, no, I don't know, you know, and what's the difference between this and this? And so I started thinking, I need to understand visually how things work and what makes like somebody's skin look shiny or sunburned, or I know it's not, it might just be color, but it might be something else. And so as I started exploring that, I started like breaking it down into those exercises and saying, okay. And I think slime. So the first one I did was I had a bar of soap, and then I made the soap like I had the soap like dull, and I took a picture of it. I got in the shower and I saw it, and I was like, I think I'm going to start with this one. So I grabbed my phone and just took a picture of the dull soap, and then after the shower, it had bubbles on it and stuff, and I took a picture of that, and I did that one. And so like trying to get that to those two different states of that, I was like, wow, this is, and I really had to break it down because I'm like,
your haystacks. Like,
yes, that's it. That's it. Right. Totally. But I didn't want to go to the, like, my goal is sometimes if I really don't understand it, I will try to do just a straight up study of something and just sort of copy it. But that's only to understand it. And then I'll try to do it again and try to change it. But that, like, you know, I wanted to paint the bubbles on that soap and stuff without having to paint every little pixel. Do you know what I mean? I really wanted to get the sort of essence of it so that I could do it. So I kind of created this whole system. I was like, all right, well, I'm going to break it down into what each texture, how can I break down textures? Like, and then I have this whole system. And what's funny is this is exactly what's happened to me my whole life. I started pursuing that direction, and Bobby from Schoolism was like, hey, you know, we should do a class. You're doing these textures. Let's do a class on these textures. So I'm like, okay, cool. You know, let's do a class on that. So I started doing a class. So this is what's happened to me is like, I get interested in something and then I just pursue it as long as I possibly can. And then I'll just, you know, and then I'll move forward. So, so it's been really fun. And now I think I'm almost at 400 now. I'm trying to get to 500, and then I'll move on to something else. Like my next thing is, I have it in my mind already, because I'm like, I want to be able to do imaginative work really well. And so one of the other components that I don't have now, I can do it somewhat, but not great, is understanding like construction. So like being able to draw like even an amorphous shape or like a simple shape, like just being able to turn it in my head and draw it from any angle and have it read just really well, you know? Like those Disney animators, like early Disney animators, they could take, like, you could just tell them what shape, be like, I want it to be a blob with a cross sticking out and this and that. And they could just turn that. I mean, they could draw it from they just, in their head, they just knew they were spot on with all that stuff. And so that'll be a key part of the next thing. And then after that will be, so I'll probably do some like 1,000 heads or 1,000 hands thing or something like that. And then the next part would be composition studies and doing like thumbnails, like composition thumbnail. I have like a plan laid out for all these things. And then eventually I think at the end of that, I'll be like, all right, let's put it all together. And I'm hoping at that point, it'll be like, whoa, like I'll come out with some stuff and people will be like, that's a lot better than what he's done in the past. I'm hoping. So
it's
so
really interesting, the texture thing, because like I really think it's cool what you're doing, and I think it's a really smart idea, and I think that I can see like why people be inspired by that, and I think it's a really good thing to practice. It's really I really enjoy seeing them too. Like it's really cool to see them, but it's funny because I have a completely different perspective of it, because
interesting.
Like to me there is no texture.
Right. You just you're gonna paint the like the shapes of light and dark and how they go,
and if the values and the color and everything, like that's like it will look like a tennis ball,
right,
and it will look like dirt, and it will look like this, but it's not. It's just brush strokes, and
right.
I'm just capturing the shape and the values, and so it's interesting, like.
And I've come from that perspective. That's exactly where I came from before, where it was, I don't need, like, you know, people would say like, should I study anatomy? And I always say like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, do you want to paint from life? I'm like, you don't need to know one thing about anatomy. If you're going to paint from life, you don't need to know anything. Like if you want to do a painting like Sargent,
it'll help you, but
right. It'll help you, but you don't need it. Like you look at Zorn and he's got like one stroke for like an arm or something. It's like, he's not thinking about anatomy. He's just squinting and looking at it, you know? So I understand exactly where you're coming from, and
it's just a different way I think of.
Right.
But it's still, I mean, it's a really good practice. I mean, it's really, it's funny. I had, when I was like, I'm pretty much self-taught, and, I remember when I was learning how to paint, I was so confused.
Right.
There's
lots of different ways to do it.
Yeah, like I just didn't understand how important values are.
Mm-hmm.
And I even find that when I teach with my classes, I feel like I'm repeating myself over and over again, but it's the most important thing is values. And I feel like if there is a such thing as magic with art, that's the magic.
Yeah,
because
totally.
Once you understand values, you can paint anything.
That's right.
And
edges, values and edges. And
exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize that. And my dad was, it's funny. My dad was a teacher he's retired now, but he taught most of his career, and he was an art teacher, but he spent all this time teaching other kids and stuff, but I didn't really learn from him. Like I spent all my time alone pursuing my own thing, and every once in a while I would ask him for something and he would show me something, but really I kind of blew my dad off basically when I was a kid. Like I had to do it my own way, and then every once in a while, like I remember one time my dad, I was like, this is way before I actually started learning how to paint, because I gave up because my dad, like, it's funny, and this is nothing against my dad, but my dad would teach other kids. And I think with me, he was like, nah, I do that all day.
Right. Right. Like, I get that. I understand that.
And you got enough drive, you'll figure it out. I mean, I don't, because I was like, I remember I was like, Dad, I want to learn how to paint. And he sat me down. He put a wooden duck decoy on the table. He squirted black paint and white paint on a paper plate, and then he gave me a brush and something. He goes, paint it. And that was it. It was like some wax on, wax off shit. Right. And like, and I was like, screw this. Like, this is not, like, I want to do a demo for me or explain. But he didn't do that.
Yeah.
And then I would go to my room and I would spend hours and hours on a drawing. Mm-hmm. And I was, and then I would bring it to him, to like a drawing of a deer or something. And I all I wanted was for him to say, whoa, this is awesome. But instead he started drawing on top of it. And I went back to my room and I cried because he destroyed my drawing.
Right.
And and again, nothing against my dad. My dad was trying to teach me things, but I just wanted him to say my drawing was cool.
Right. Right.
And then what I did was I just didn't ask for help anymore. I just
yeah,
like,
because you didn't want him to ruin your drawings, right?
yeah, I'm gonna just sit and draw Ninja Turtles and Batman and sharks and I'm gonna figure this out on my own. And
right.
But when I became a professional, when I was out on my own, and I just started. I mean, I just would take on any job I could get. Like someone wanted me to draw their dog or their family, whatever. And that's kind of how I got started, just doing like small things. But when I was trying to learn how to paint, like teaching myself how to actual paint, I was so confused about so many things. And my dad, it's just funny how he would just say something, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh,
right.
And he told me painting a nose is no different than painting water.
That's right.
And I was like, no, there's a huge difference there.
Right.
You know? But I didn't understand it though. And then once all of a sudden, like I tell people, like it was like the Matrix. Once I understood values, I could see everything.
That's right.
I was like, oh my gosh, I can paint anything.
Yep.
And it was like crazy. It went from painting is so hard and kind of intimidating, and I don't think I'll ever be able to do it, to I'm gonna kick some serious ass now. Like it's like I got superpowers or something.
Yes.
And I still remember like the way I started painting was my first daughter was about to be born, and I had a panic attack, and I was telling myself that if you don't learn how to paint, you're never going to be able to provide for your family.
Right.
And you're never going to seriously make it as an illustrator, because at that point I was just drawing and doing like maybe some pen and ink and watercolor, color pencil, but not real painting.
Right.
And I literally did my first painting while my now ex-wife was in pre-labor. I just
wow.
I just did my first painting, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, I gotta learn how to paint, otherwise.
That feeling. I know that feeling, man. Like I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And then I just never stopped painting. That was it. And I still wasn't understanding the values. I was struggling through it. And then all of a sudden one day it just clicked. And all of a sudden I'm like, it's just an amazing, it's totally weird. So that's why, like, when I teach my students, I'm like, I'm always like, stop worrying about color or any other stuff. Right. Doesn't matter right now.
Yeah. And that's so true. Like, and I think it depends on what you want your final product to be, and what you want the journey to be to get there too. So for me, like, my goal was always to kind of like come at it from that side, like exactly what you're saying, and then come at it from the other side, so that I can have the shortcuts, like, and hopefully in, like I was saying, like 10 years, 15 years from now, combine those both into something where I can grab a reference and just paint exactly that, and then also have the shortcuts of understanding the way all that works. But you might not even have a need for that, because it's funny though, but it's funny to what you're saying, because I remember early on somebody came up to me and they were like, well, I'm an artist too. I was like, oh, good, you're an artist too. They're like, well, and I said this to them. They were like, I'm not really good at painting hands, but they're like, but I'm good at painting trees. And I said, well, you're not good at painting. And they were like, well, what do you mean? Like, how do you know? I said, well, if you're not good at painting hands and you're good at painting trees, I was like, your trees are bad. I said, you just don't know they're bad because you know what a hand looks like, and the tree could really be anything. I said, and they were like, I guess that's true. And I said, yeah. I was like, everything is everything. Like what you said, I was like, if some things are more demanding on your skill set, like some things are more demanding, but everything is the same. Like everything is the same. It's just shapes of color, and you just put them in the right place. But the thing that's different though about like what I've found, and and like I said, you might not have a need for this, but this is what doing those texture studies has showed me. It's given me the visual shortcut to make the viewer understand that. So those shapes are arranged in a very particular way, the shapes of light and dark, to tell the viewer that this object is the way it is, right?
Yeah.
So when I go through and do these studies, I'm actually really, because you understand this more than anybody, actually. Like a lot of times when I talk to people about this, they wouldn't get what I'm saying, but I'm really studying the shapes and their interaction and the edge work. Like, and so like, for instance, like a good example of something is like hair, getting hair to read. You can almost do nothing on the inside. Like I've just found this by doing the texture studies. If you address the silhouette, that's sometimes all you need to do. You don't need to do anything else, and it will look like hair. And so those kind of shortcuts are very helpful, because then when I'm doing a painting, I can be like, well, this is going to be slime. I know I can make this look different than my reference, or I can adjust the reference or change this just based on this knowledge. And I know the shortcut. So now, like, because what sort of made me think about all this was like seeing Sargent's like furniture or something, right? So like you know this when you've looked at his paintings, like you see his furniture and there's like, it's basically not there, and then there's like a little highlight and like some things, and you're like, why does that look like Victorian furniture? Like it doesn't make sense, you know? And it's so like annoying. I know, but I think a lot of that, he didn't do what I'm doing, but it's that idea of it's really about simplification for me. It looks like my texture studies are really rendered and stuff like that, but actually, if you zoom in on them, they're super loose. And it's really about me learning, like, what is the essence of this thing visually. And my goal was always to break it down to absolutely the simplest way that I can express it and think about it. And that's really helpful for me, because then now I'm finding that I can like pull that out, right? So I can pull that tool out and use it and say, oh, I want this to be like this sort of feel of this object to have that sort of feel. And I don't need to have the actual reference always, or I can modify the reference a lot of times, or different things like that, or you know. So, but you're absolutely right though. Yeah, and I mean, you really do. Everything's a trick too. Like I feel like that too. Like everything is a trick. Like you're taking a 3D object and you're displaying it on a 2D surface. Like really, it's a trick. Like it's you know. And so it's all once illusion. Once you learn how to convey that trick and make people think it's 3D, when you learn what's required.
I mean, it's strange. It's like I just had a thought, which I don't even know if this makes sense. I'm just gonna say it, but like it's like a book, and you got a page that's got marks on it. So it's just a piece of paper with marks on it.
Right.
But those marks are actually symbols that mean things. And all of a sudden that page turns into something else. It means something. There's like different depths of dimension to creating.
Right.
You know, and it's one of my favorite things. It's funny because, you know, like when I was first getting started, I was looking at artists like C.F. Payne, Roberto Parada. There's like artists that were rendering and painting very realistic caricature type work.
Right.
And I was like, I that's what I'm trying to aim for. And so my goal early on was to paint as photorealistic as possible.
Right.
So tight.
That's people usually start that way, you know?
Yeah. And I was doing that. And now, and as I started to grow, I started to realize I can now make people think that it's that tight.
Right.
And my favorite thing is now is like when I can zoom in and show people like for example, my Biden cover that I did, if you zoom in on the back of his head and the ear, it's all literally just soft shadow with just the ear is just a few marks.
Yep.
And when people see the cover, they're like, oh, that looks so photorealistic. And I'm just like,
I love that. I love that.
That's the part about it that's what I'm getting excited about.
Right.
Like I just did, you know, there's only a few paintings like that where I feel like, yes, like, I have this diner painting, with these guys sitting in a diner, and it's one of my paintings. I think I did it in 2010. And, it's one of those paintings where people are always like, man, it's so photorealistic. It's just like, if you can feel the atmosphere, and they just go on and on and on. And I want to, I don't know if I have shown it, but I probably should at some point. But if the interesting thing about that painting, that it was a like a what's the right way? It was a stepping, you know,
Yes, yeah, a learning, like, yeah, you leveled up or something.
Yeah, it was like I kind of I changed when I did that painting, and it was a huge growth for me, because I love it when people look at that painting and they go, it looks like a photo manipulation, or it looks like something. But when you zoom in on that painting, like there's these two old guys like eating and stuff. When you zoom in, it is so loose, and the hand is just it's like a few marks, and like and when I was doing that, I would do that, and I would zoom back, and I'm like, ooh, that looks real. And it was like I was figuring it out. And that's one thing I love about it, because it's basically, once you start to understand painting, it's like it's all illusion.
That's right.
It's all these things, and when these marks are put in a certain way, like it's the same guy. If you zoom in on his coat, it looks sloppy, and there's like marks and stuff. And but when you look at it as a whole, it just looks like a really solid.
Totally.
And that's the kind of stuff that I'm like, you know, when I can do that, I feel like I'm doing a good painting.
Absolutely.
And I started to realize, like, why in the world? Like, I've painted tons of Donald Trumps.
Right.
Like way before.
You might be one of the people that have painted him more than. Do you think maybe it's possible you've painted him more than anybody?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of illustrators that have done it. I mean, there's a lot.
You've painted him a lot, though.
Yeah, but especially before he was president, I did like there's this painting the painting that I'm trying to talk about right now is like, I think I did it in 2010 or 11, and it was a Trump for Utney Reader, and he's like tied to a building. He's like burning at the stake, basically.
Interesting.
And he's just like, ugh, you know.
Yeah. That was pretty good.
But the it's getting hot in here. Okay.
You got like the lower lip too. I don't know.
But the perspective of that painting is like, you're looking at his face and you're looking down, like there's like, you know, it's like a perspective. So his face is really big on the cover and up close, and as it goes down, you know, things get less saturated. They get like values get, you know what I mean? Like you want that the face is going to be more detailed. Right. So basically, for that painting, I mean, I painted every pore, every little, you know, and I still look at that painting. I'm like, damn, I'm looking at, I mean, the eyes, the way I did the wrinkles and everything. Very proud of that. It's super detailed. It's super photorealistic, but did it need to be?
Right.
You know? Because now, and that was like 10 years ago or a little over 10 years ago. Now, when I did a cover recently of Cuomo, and it almost it doesn't have that same quality. Like, if you want to say, oh, it's not as photorealistic, it's true, it's not as photorealistic. But again, they only gave me a day to do it, a day and a half. Right. So, but it has the same aesthetic, and a story is being told. Right. You know exactly who it is. It's funny. You can actually see more brushwork. It fits more movement. So, you know, as an artist, I've realized, like, wow, I can say just as much or more. That's right. With less.
Yeah. Right.
And
which makes those statements, in my opinion, like like when I talk to my students, I always tell them, I say, listen, I was like, if you're like one of the most famous speeches ever is like Winston Churchill. He's like, he had all these great speeches, and he just gets up there and says, don't ever give up, like never, ever, ever give up, like that. And everybody's like, oh, like, do you think they're going to remember that? Yeah, they're going to remember that, you know? And so if you can say something in a sentence that is that is super powerful. Now this is the thing that makes it hard though. Like you can speak for a half an hour and have it be powerful, but it's not going to be as memorable. But though, when you say something in a sentence, every single word, like the care that has to be taken with the delivery, and every single word has to be so spot on. So a lot of people think, when they're like, well, you just said a sentence, like that's all you said, like you shouldn't get paid to speak and say that, or you shouldn't, or whatever, you know. It's like, you just said a sentence. It's like, no, the skill that's required to, it's like, I mean, it's like a guy like that's a fighter knocking someone out in one punch. It's like they didn't get to knock him out in one punch, by just luck. Like they got to that, they did all the research on that fighter. They did whatever. I think if people can strive to simplify, it makes the message more powerful. And in terms of the painting, when someone walks up to a painting or looks at a painting and their mind is finishing the painting on its own, what they're involved now in the process. So I almost feel like a painting like that, I did the same thing, like my overly detailed paintings and stuff like that at the beginning. I almost feel like it was me writing a script and it's the villain like explaining the whole plot. Like, well, this is when I went to the bank and I got the money, see, and I did the, or whatever. Like, but then once you learn the craft of, I don't know that, but once you learn, I know what good movies are, like it's more subtle, and it's like you make the audience make the connection, and they're like, oh, and when the audience makes the connection, they feel like a part of the process. So I really feel like paintings are the same, where if you spell everything out for the person, and then you give them nothing to do, like it's not exciting, it's not. But they called Sargent sloppy, when they first started doing it. They were like, he's and people I've still had classical guys say that he wasn't a draftsman, and I was like, guys, I said, is it easier to do it in 3 strokes and when you back up it looks realistic, or is it easier to do it in 300? I was like, we do. I was like, it's way easier in 300 to get it to look realistic. I said, to do it in 3 takes like immense control, like surgical control, like, so
it's also it's amazing what goes on in your mind, because you have to get to a point as an artist where you're like, you see it, you see it before,
right?
Like, and
like
it, Did
you ever see that swan painting by Nathan Falk? Sorry to
oh no, it's fine.
I just wanted to throw this in from what you're saying, because he did the swan painting, and Bobby told me that Nathan Falk's like looked at this thing for like a half an hour and thought through the whole process and did this watercolor painting. You guys can look it up if you're looking at it, like look up Nathan Falk's and swan painting or something. And I think that's the one. And it's real loose, like super loose. It's like watercolor. And Bobby said he painted it in like 30 seconds or like a minute and a half or something. But he like literally in his brain was like, I'm going to do this and do that. He's like next level. He's like next level with that kind of thing. I mean, but he apparently just thought about it for a super long time and then just did it. So it was like somebody visualizing something, and then, I mean, he was so good at that blew my mind. You could see it on the painting. You're like, it looks like a swan in the water, and it looks like 5 strokes maybe total. It's
like Tom Cruise in The Last Samurai.
Yes, when he's kneeling down and he's
like in his mind, he's just like, and all of a sudden
it happens in a split second. Right? Yeah. Dude, exactly. That's Nathan Falk's in it, and he's Tom Cruise, man. He's the Tom Cruise of the art world. That's it. Except he's not awkward. I talked to him. He's not real weird and awkward. Yeah. Dude, that's really funny. I knew exactly what you're talking about. I wonder if some younger people listening, they're like, "What's Last Samurai?" Like they might not even know what it is.
Oh man, I miss comedy.
Dude. I know, and there's a war on comedy right now. People like this. It's like the culture doesn't like people making fun of people.
I can't wait to be. I have a lot of new material that I cannot wait to get up there and say. Like, awesome. I'm so excited. I'm like totally ready. I have at least 10 minutes of material that I feel really good about, and so I'm excited, man. I don't care. Here's the thing.
You can't, as a comedian, you can't care. Like, you got to just make fun of everyone, and you just have to.
People are so ridiculous.
Yeah.
And, like I'm not, I'm not a person that's like, I don't want to like, upset people or offend people for no reason.
Right.
I'm not like, obviously I'm against like racist comedy and stuff like that.
Right.
But also
stuff that's just mean-spirited at its nature. Like,
No, I'm all about, let's think about things and let's laugh about it. Like, and some of my stuff is just ridiculous. Like the whole point of it is to make you uncomfortable so you laugh.
That's the point.
Yeah, like,
and it should make you introspective. It should, like, so like my dad's a pastor, you know, and so like, and our whole family, we're all Christian. It's like, and I don't like the idea of, and we've talked about comedy, you know, you and me, like we've talked about that, your comedy and stuff like that. I don't like when people are laughing at everything else, and then all of a sudden it comes around to them, and they're like, "Oh, you can't talk about that."
Yeah,
you know, like, so like, you know, and there have been people like in my church that are like, I don't think that this is, you know, a serious topic and this and that, and they shouldn't be talking about Christ this way, or they shouldn't be. And I'm like, listen, I was like, you should listen to what they're saying, because most of the time there's truth in there. And I said, and it's a way for, I said, so you should take that as something as introspective and laugh where you can laugh and say, yeah, that is ridiculous. Like, I mean, that's, you know, like, but also really think about it, because like, for me, I've found that comedy, like, it makes me like the things that I am like, when all of a sudden when I feel offended or something, I'm like, well, let me think about that, because why am I getting offended? Like, you know, and so I like to think, so I don't like right now, because, you know, like I'm not going to, you know, put it on repeat for my kids, like, you know, like foul stuff and whatever, you know, I'm not going to do that, but it's like, but I don't think comedians should have to, I don't think that they should have to, that anything should be off limits. You know what I mean? I think
that you can't talk about certain things. It's like, yeah, of course you can.
Right.
Like,
and it'll sort of work itself out. If people aren't laughing, if it's not funny and it's not done in the right way, people are not going to laugh. They're just going to be straight up offended. You know what I mean? Like, it's got to be done with some truth involved and stuff. And
that's the thing is it, for me, every single thing that I do in comedy, my writing is all my own experiences.
Right.
And what makes me laugh. And it's my truth. And maybe you're going to relate to it.
Right.
And I try to make it ridiculous and stuff, but it's funny.
It's been really funny. The stuff that you've told me already was really funny. Like that I heard, I mean, I just heard you like working out material and stuff like that. That was a while ago.
Yeah. I mean, I did, it's funny. So there's this caricature convention, ISCA, International Society of Caricature Artists. And they had the last one was online because, you know, what's going on.
Right. Yeah, I know.
But the one before was in Memphis, and I went, and the night you get there was an ice break party, and there was like a stage, and people were doing some people get up and sing a song, or it was just whatever. And I was like, I'm gonna sign up, and most of the people they know who I am, and a lot of them were my friends, but I don't think they know that I was starting to do stand-up.
Dude, that's the best. And then you show, and they're like, because that's so intimidating to go up, and I mean, that's one of the most intimidating things I think
there's
on
like
the planet.
Maybe 200-300 people there,
and they're not shocked. Like, what?
Well, it's not a room. It's not a room ready for comedy, really.
That's perfect.
And I had to change some of my words because there was kids around and stuff.
Right. Yeah.
But because I get a little dirty, but it's funny. Like,
well, it's you gotta, like, I understand, like, comedians, like, you kind of, I mean, it could be funny to say Mr. Poopy Pants or something, but, you know, I get it. Like, you know, comedians, it's like, you've got to kind of, that's their whole thing, is they got to push the limits, you know? I
mean, here's the thing. Masturbation. It's like,
I think I heard you talk about
why are people so weird about masturbation? It's a real thing that we do. And I find a lot of humor because it makes people so uncomfortable. It's like,
right. The second you mention it, it's like, oh yeah.
Everybody does this. And so I got up there and they're like, hey, Jasonseiler's going to come up and do.
You did it on that thing.
And
I wish I could see their faces.
I did like 7 minutes. And it was my favorite part about it is Steven Silver.
Savage.
Steven Silver was there, and he was just dying the entire time. And I kept looking over at his table because he was just like cracking up. And I was like,
he's a funny guy too. I met him at Lightbox. He's funny.
Yeah, he's awesome. And I have some Jesus stuff in my stand-up, but it's not the funny part about it is it's not really make not really making fun of Jesus.
Right.
It's more of the
That's it.
idea of my parents telling me when I was a kid that
Right.
masturbation was wrong and that I better be a good boy because Jesus is always watching.
Right.
What?
Right.
Why
Right.
would he want to watch that?
Right.
And then I do a whole
Right.
thing about Jesus watching me masturbate. That's so weird. And so I take it. So, you know, and I'm like why, you know, I don't understand. It's like, I just imagine Jesus ignoring a tsunami or cancer babies because watching me stick my dick into a plate of warm mashed potatoes is more important.
Well,
Like,
and see that gets that, like, see, that's what I'm saying. Like, so, you know, like that, this would be like an example of something that I would say to someone at my church. Like, they'd be like, that's super offensive. And that's super. And I'm like, okay, you know, maybe it is, you know, super offensive. And I understand, but I'm like, number one, like I could tell you to talk to Jason and he would not disparage like your belief in Christ. Like, that's not what he's doing. He's not, but what you are pointing out is something that has annoyed me about the church for a long time, is like Jesus in your heart and this and like all these like things that are not really accurate and like these weird sort of like I don't even know, like these like sayings or whatever the word is for it. Like you're pointing that out. And this is what I'm saying is like, I try to tell people, I say, listen, I'm like, look past it. And I think Ricky Gervais was the one that said people confuse the target of the joke or something like that. Like he said,
yeah,
they confuse the target with the
joke
subject.
is about.
Right.
Like,
yeah. He said they confuse the target with the subject of the joke, like, or what it's about, you know?
And the funny thing about that joke in particular, there's more to it, but that joke is actually a setup for my ender, which is a Bill Cosby joke.
Right.
And my Bill Cosby joke won't work if I don't have that.
Right.
And so it's there's all. And so anyways, my point is I did that in front of all these different people. And there's this one guy in particular, Mike, who the rest of the week, because we're at the convention for the rest of the week now. We're all drawing. And he came up and told me how offensive. I couldn't believe. And like, just when I thought you couldn't say anything more offensive, you said something even more offensive. I'm like, dude, it's comedy.
Right.
But he was so offended by the Jesus stuff. But it's like, I wasn't saying, you know, I mean, like, if you want to get into a debate about like is God real, or do I believe in this or his message or anything? Right. That's not what the jokes were about.
Right. That's right. That's right.
It's about a little boy being caught when he was 6 years old masturbating, and his dad tells him Jesus is watching you. And that's the part where it's like, that's pretty weird. And and
as a kid, you would think that is weird. See, I feel like, and see, like we've talked enough where I feel like you and I could have a very meaningful and productive conversation about all that. I don't feel like, see, this is again what I'm talking about. Like for me, I would much rather start with honesty from people, and I would much rather like my dad, for instance. So, you know, he's a pastor, but he was involved with archaeology. So he was with all of these Orthodox Jews in Baltimore Hebrew University, right? And so they'd be like, one time there was a street preacher that was yelling at everybody, yelling at the Jewish guys, and he was assuming my dad was part of that, you know. And so the Jewish guy goes, "Hey," he goes, "this guy's a Christian." He goes, "He thinks I'm going to hell. I think Christ was insane." He goes, "Why can't you be more like him?" You know, he's like, "Why can't we just talk about it and get along?" Like, you know, and I feel like, for me, I always feel like the nice thing, I'm a really honest person. I know you are too. And we're very, like you and I can have that's why I think we got along, and, you know, we could just be really honest. And I feel like comedy is like one place where people can truly be honest. Like, they could just say it, right? And it's like, everybody's thinking it, like you said, everybody's talking about it. And I like that, because I feel like, so I might not tell the joke, right? I might not do that, but you know what I'm saying? I mean, realistically, like, or I might even be offended by or whatever at first, but it's like, I like that it creates an honest discussion that you can then move forward and say, listen, this is the elephant in the room. Like, let's just put it out there and let's just like acknowledge it. And then we can all, but when people stop there and they want to, like, you know, I can't even imagine like me saying, I want to stop you from saying what you said.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it's funny because I think that's why for me, comedy is something that I resonate with so much because one, I am a very honest person. I don't bullshit around. And two, I have no filter.
Right.
I
love people like that. They're like my favorite people.
I just say whatever comes.
Yeah.
Sometimes my wife is just like, oh my God.
Oh, me too. My wife says the same.
Because but I can't really help it. I'm
the same.
I just like, I can't, I can control it, but at the same time, I'm also the kind of person that if I have, even if I'm hanging out with some friends or even people I just met, and this is how I've always been, if something comes to me where there's a bit and I know I can get this group of people, I'll just say the most craziest thing sometimes. And I don't know why I do that. It's just, I've always, ever since I was a little kid, I would, my parents would be like, I don't know if we should bring him places because I would say things to pastors.
But you're testing it out. You're testing it out and seeing like the reaction and like,
I just always I always just love like the uncomfortableness and making people laugh. And I don't know, but again, there is a strategy to it. There's like, that's why I like to talk about comedy. There's a real art to it.
Absolutely.
And
I could not do it. I'm like, I would fumble like the delivery and I would mess everything up.
What's funny about it is because I do consider myself a very straight up person. Like I don't bullshit around. But what's interesting about comedy is, for me anyways, I like to deceive people into a certain direction,
right,
where they think I'm talking about something else or I'm gonna say this or that, whatever,
and then you flip it and turn it,
and then they're like, oh, that's just okay. Like, that's not like I like to talk about how I'm actually not having a good day today. My dog is really sick and I'm actually kind of bummed out. I know this is supposed to be funny, but I'm really feeling, and people are just like, and then I just say something crazy and they're like, what the, like, but because I want to say it because it's also acting. Like I want people to feel, I want them to all of a sudden be like, oh, geez, he kind of just brought the energy down and I feel bad. And then all of a sudden I say something crazy and they're like, oh, that's right, this is comedy.
Right. Like, right. Yeah, that's the journey, man. Like that's like what makes slapstick, like when kids are like, oh, how they're laughing at like slapstick, it's like, it's surprising to them. Like what happens is shocking and surprising. Now, once you get used to it, and you're older, it's not as funny, but it's the surprise that makes people like, oh, and really like you getting up and saying like what no one would ever say at a party ever. Like if they're in a group of people, do you know what I mean? That's part of it. Like that's the way it has to be. Like you can't, like, so coming from my perspective, like I would go to the complete other extreme. I'd be like, oh, you're atheists, right? You're burning in hell or something, I would talk about that and tell a joke. Now I wouldn't really feel that way. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I wouldn't be like, I wouldn't be like, well, it's actually more of a nuanced position and I'd like to speak to you about it later. Like when you're doing comedy, I would come out and say like, I'm starting a new crusades. All of you are going to be dead. You're all pagans or, that's the way I'd approach it. And so I wouldn't want them to get offended because I'm like, obviously I don't think that, like, or I wouldn't approach it that way or whatever, so it's funny. That surprise element too is it's gotta be there. Like you can't say what anybody would be willing to say and expect it to be funny,
No. Yeah. I mean, that's the hard part though, because you might have a funny idea and you think it's, it's going to make people laugh, and then you go to one place and you deliver it and nobody laughs. Or so that happens and you're like, oh, maybe that's not very funny. Or the worst is, dude, am I just telling dad jokes? Like, and I don't want that, and so it's such a insecure, nerve-wracking thing, and you're never gonna know until you get up and do it. And then that's how you figure out your voice, and because you can sit and you can write a bunch of things, but until you get up in front of people. And so what I've been doing during this pandemic thing is any chance I get to be around people, I try my material, but I do it in a way, like, I don't want them to know I'm doing a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll just say something like, you know, like one of my bits is I'll just like throw it in a conversation. You know, something like, I don't believe in God. So I was doing this with my brother-in-law. I go, Dave. He's like, yeah. And I go, yeah, I don't, I don't believe in God. So when I climax, I say nothing. And he was like, he's like, starts laughing. Like, and I go, yeah. And recently I've been realizing I don't think my wife believes in God either, you know?
Right.
And, and so, but I throw it into conversation.
Right.
And then he realizes, oh, wow. He goes, you should use that. I'm like,
yeah,
that is
you're like, I'm doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to see what would happen.
Right.
And so I'll kind of throw in like little things just to see like if and I do it like I go to my favorite wine shop down the street here, and they're so much fun. I wish I could show you the way the one guy, he's got the funniest little haircut, and I walk in and he's like hello my friend,
Yeah.
And I always, my goal every time I go in there is to see if I can make them laugh.
Right.
And I'll say some crazy stuff about my dog, or like, like yesterday, it was snowing all of a sudden, like out of nowhere. And it was like, we've been having great weather. All of a sudden it's snowing again. And I don't even remember what I said, but I said something totally crazy. And they're just like laughing. And then I'm like, like, that's my cue. And then I just leave, 'cause I always try to get them to laugh about something. One time I went in there and they had like these little teeny, what is it? What's that vodka? Tito's or?
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Is it blue? Is it the
No,
blue?
it's like a goldy. It's
I don't know that
like
one.
Tito's or something like that.
It's like the cheap one. Is it like the cheap one? Or, no, it's not. Okay.
I can't remember what it's called exactly, but I think it was something like Tito's or something.
Okay.
But I went. They're like putting together little mini bottles together, and I go, Tito's. That's Spanish for small titties, or no, no, that's not what I said. I go, Tito's, and they're like looking at me, and I go, Spanish for small boobies or something. I said something like that, just like threw it.
People are like, what the heck? Yeah,
it's dumb, but it's like, it's just like not expected. So that's what I like to do, because it just, they went from being bored at work to now they're laughing.
Right.
So, but that's, I think the fun part about like, just because that's what I enjoy about comedy stuff, is just the interaction with people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's all about.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally. Now, and right. So you have like, I mean, it's in you too. You have the podcast, you have like, I mean, that you like interacting, and now do you think, this is what I think too. So like, people will sometimes, like people that are honest, right? So like comedians, like you kind of have to be a person that's honest with yourself and honest with other people. You kind of can't be a comedian if you don't admit your own flaws, or at least come to grips with them, and come to grips with everybody else's flaws too, and kind of that thing. But I think people that are more generally honest, like people see comedians in the time where they're making fun of themselves and making fun of other people. But in the other moments, what I've noticed is that those people who are willing to tell the truth will also be the people that are willing to stand up for people, and also be the ones that are willing to say it just out of the blue, like nice things too. Like, like they're capable, like, so it's honest, and it's like, hey, I've seen comedians like Bill Burr or somebody like that, or whatever. He's just like, ragging on something, whatever group or whatever, he's just talking about it. But then he seems to me to be a very, very compassionate person. And very and I think there's that dichotomy where it's like, well, and he's also standing up for the people that are being ostracized a lot of times, or there's a lot of that, and so I feel like when people want to silence comedians because they're telling the truth as they see it, when they want to silence that, they're also going to be silencing those same people who are willing to tell the truth when that other person that is saying something about you, and they'll be the ones that tell the truth about them. You know what I mean? And so, you know, I don't know. Like I tend to think like it goes both ways. Like it cuts both ways. Like, you know, you're a very, very honest person. I have a feeling like you'd be like, John, what is that outfit or something? And I'd be like, what do you mean? And you'd be like, dude, what are you? It's like, you look like a 90s, like, you know,
I don't know
like,
if I would do that
or whatever. I'm just saying, like, if you did or something like that. Right. But I'm saying if you did something like that, if we got to know each other really well, you'd probably do that. But then I also would see you as the type of person that would be really encouraging and be really, you know, so
I try to be, but you know, it's interesting with Bill Burr, you know, this whole cancel culture thing that we're going through right now is absolutely just people aren't understanding how dangerous it is, because it's one thing to censor hate speech or things like that. Right. But like, you know, like Bill Burr was on SNL a few months ago, and his opening monologue was probably some of the best stand-up I've seen in a long time.
I think I saw that. I think I saw parts of it at least or something.
It's so good. It was like 7 minutes long, and it's better than most comic specials. It was so good.
He's so good.
And when I watched it, I was like going to school. I was like, wow, look at what he's doing. Like, how would he, and you know, it was, dude, I encourage anyone that loves comedy, if you haven't seen it, you have to watch it. But the funny thing is the world went fucking bananas, and they called him racist. They called him homophobic.
Well, it's like they don't know his act. Like, I mean, like they don't, you know. And well, isn't he married to a black woman though?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
Okay. But he made a comment about, he was making a joke about how, you know, why do black people get the month of February? Like he's basically saying it's the worst month. It's the shortest month.
I heard that part. It's like all the weather is bad.
And he goes, these are equator people. And that was so racist to say that. Like, no, it's not. Like I'm like basically 100% Norse, and like you know, I can wear shorts throughout most of the winter. Like I cold.
Right. Me too. Me too. I'm the same. Yeah.
So I wouldn't be offended if you called me a Viking or whatever. I mean,
right.
But you know, it's just funny how people just went crazy about that.
Yeah.
But he's making a point. He's like, these are equator people. And you're like, they can't even have a parade or anything. It's freaking freezing outside. It's the shortest month. And he's like, why don't you give them like, you know, July?
Right.
Because, and he goes, and it would be a great thing, because if they happen to be black and gay, they get to celebrate. Like he made a joke, like we give gay people the whole month of June, you know, and I can't remember
2 straight months, right?
And you get 2 straight months of parades, but it was way better than that. But like,
right. But yeah, his delivery.
But then but people are like, oh, he's being homophobic and he's being racist, and it's like, what so now we can't talk about other people being different, like right. That is insane. That's insane. Like so I don't know.
I think like I mean, I almost feel, I hope that comedians and people like that, they just kind of ignore it, because I've
listened to like all of his podcasts. He's like one of my favorite comedians, and basically people were asking him like, dude, man, all the back. He's like, I didn't even pay attention. And he goes, you want to know what my experience was? He's like, I'm not going to look at any of those things. People were like trying to cancel him. He's like, I had the best time of my life on SNL. Everyone there was nice to me. He has so much respect for what they do and how they did it. And he's like, it was a great experience.
And the crowd was laughing. And
the crowd was laughing. They loved his material. He had this great Rick Moranis joke about New York. And like Rick Moranis got punched in the face, and he was like, "Yeah, baby, New York is back," you know, like, and like,
even that's funny.
Yeah, and then like, you know, and then he was like, and then I got to hang out with Jack White, and Jack White just like shredded 2 songs. And he's like, it was the best night of my life. And who's gonna try? No one can take that away from him. And that was a great. And so his attitude is, this was great and whatever. And he doesn't listen to any of this stuff. And the thing is a lot of people feed into you know, my Bill Cosby joke, for example. I'm not gonna say it right now. I don't want to say too many of my things, but I did share a clip of it, and you can find it on my Instagram. It's very short, and it's funny, but like the stuff before it really sets it up. But I already got a small taste of this. I shared it just to share. People are always like, I want to hear some of your comedy and everything. And so this particular joke, I got a great reaction from the crowd, and I happened to not film it, but record on my phone. And I wanted to share with people because the reaction of the crowd to my joke just makes me so happy. Because when I start to,
that's got to feel so good, man. Like when it lands and it's like, yeah, it's got to feel so good.
And the best part was because when I say, do you think he was watching when Bill Cosby, and everyone's like, no, don't say, like everyone's in the crowd's yelling at me, no, don't finish this joke. And I hold, and then I finish the joke, and then it's an explosion of laughter.
Right.
Like, and they're like, oh, you got it. You did it. Oh my gosh. And they're like, and I had more jokes I was going to do. And I was like, thank you so much. That's my time. And I left it because it was such a great moment.
Right.
And I just love that joke because it does it almost every time I have a good reaction like that. But I shared it because I wanted to share, a little bit of what I was doing. And most people thought it was funny, and they like, oh, this is great. Really good twist in it. But there was one person in particular that got really offended.
Yeah.
And took it completely the wrong way and got so angry and started this tried to debate with me on Facebook and stuff. And I was just like, listen, I'm not going to argue with it. It's just a joke.
Right.
And you're taking it completely out of context.
Right.
It's like, no, rape isn't funny and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, it's not really about rape. You're missing.
Right.
Yes, I put
and it's not about, and see, this is me knowing you too. Like that's not about Christ and his behavior and his character and that's not what the joke's about. Like, see, that's the thing. Like, I understand that. Like, that's why I don't like, I wonder, because people do this to artists in general. I think like they'll see one painting or they'll see, hear one song. Right. And even if the person is being very genuine, like let's say there's a very dark painting or a very dark song or something like that, like that's like having a conversation where someone says, I really feel like I don't want to be a dad anymore or something, or like, or whatever, or I don't know, like whatever would somebody be like, oh, can't believe you said that or whatever, like, but there's sometimes when you feel things that you don't actually like, it's not like, this is the way I feel. This is not my actions. I'll wait for it to pass. Like, I mean, my wife, I'm fairly sure doesn't like me some days, you know what I mean? And I deserve it. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean she doesn't love me. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that particular day, I was being like a jerk or she was being a jerk or whatever,? And so I think a lot of times like people will take artists of all type and evaluate them based on that one moment or that one thing without looking at the larger context or the grand scheme. So they probably do that with jokes too, where it's like, you joked about like I said, you and I feel like we could absolutely have a good conversation about Christ, and it would be you would probably end up being like, well, I disagree with you. And, and I'd be like, I understand. I'll be like, but we could have that conversation, but that's different than like,
what's funny about that is, and I wouldn't mind doing that sometime. It'd be fun.
Right.
Cause I have completely, I come from a different perspective.
Right.
But here's the thing. I've gotten into talks about people, and people always assume that I'm angry and I'm, and it's like, and they want to fight and they want to argue. And it's like, no, listen, we can actually, like I can't say anything without you being so offended that you think I'm attacking you.
Right.
I'm not attacking you. I'm just, and mostly I ask a lot of questions that you can't answer one of them.
Right.
And you're getting angry about that.
Well, and that's what I was just going to say. I was going to say what that really reveals is that they haven't so my friends will say, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? Right. And sometimes I'll say, I don't know. I'm working through that. I don't know. And then other times I'll say, yeah, I've thought about that. And I know where you're coming from. Like, this is what I think about that, but I understand this. And that's how the conversation goes. But I've already thought of like most of it. You know what I mean? Like, because I actually want to think about it and evaluate it.
Yeah.
So if you haven't evaluated it and thought about it and made it your own, because everybody always accused me of that. Like, they're always like, well, you just believe this because your dad did and all that stuff. And I say, you weren't there for the 6,000 conversations where I'd go in and have a new piece of information and bring it to my dad and say, well, yeah, but what about this? What about this? You know, and he would say, oh, and sometimes you'd say, I don't know, you know, and I need to think about that, or, you know, and so people that are reacting that way, it's like, it's not actually about you. I think it's more about them, and they haven't solidified.
And you said something very important. You said that there's times where you and your dad say, I don't know. One of the biggest issues that I've run into with, you know, people that want to try to argue and stuff, is they do not have the capability of saying, I don't know.
Right.
They believe because they believe, and that is it. And they don't look past certain things, or they can't.
Right.
Because to them, like, for example, like if someone asks me, well, if you don't believe in this and this, then where did everything come from? I come from the place where it's like, it's the most healthy way of looking at it. The most rational thing is to say, I don't know.
Right.
And that's okay.
Right.
But what's not healthy mentally, emotionally, everything else, is to somehow claim you do because a book told you, but you don't have any evidence and you can't back it up. You can't just say, yep, this is why. It's like, well, okay. If you want to say that, you need to, where's the evidence? Like, let's talk about this.
Right.
But if you don't actually know, just say, I don't know.
Right.
And, you know, or I have faith. I don't know, but I have faith.
Right.
And that's where it gets kind of weird, because it's like, you know, I'm more of
get to an impasse, you mean, right?
Yeah. I'm more like, you know, I don't have all the answers for things, but when I don't have the answer, I don't fill it with something else.
Right. That doesn't mean you're necessarily wrong, because like the everything that you think is wrong because you don't have the answer to that one. And I would want somebody to treat me the same way. Yeah. I would say, like, I would want to be like, if they had some point that they brought up, I would hope, if I said, well, I'm not sure, I don't know, you know, I would hope they would say, well, your whole view is invalidated. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I would hope they wouldn't say that. You know, I'd hope they'd want to talk about it, you know?
But I just think that in order to really have a conversation about something like that, you have to be honest. Like what we're saying.
Exactly. Like, exactly, man.
You know, because there's too many people that just, they want to proclaim this or that, but they don't know what they're talking about.
Right.
And if you don't know what you're talking about, just say, I don't know, or, you know, it's just funny to me. I just find it really
I'm with you. My when I was training as an artist, he goes, my teacher actually was asking me that. And he said, well, all this stuff that you believe, John, he's like, you can't prove it, right? And or he's like, you think there's proof for it? And I said, you mean like empirical proof for a lot of this stuff? He goes, yeah. I said, oh no. He goes, so you have faith? And I said, oh yeah. I was like 100%. I was like, there is an irrational component to this. And he's like, and he goes, see, like that, and I was like, what? He goes, hey, he was just talking to somebody else that that he knew that was like right around there, and that dude was saying like, no, there's like logical, like completely rational, logical reasons for all of this and all of that. And I was like, no. I was like, and it's pretty much like stated in the Bible that that's not true, that there is a faith component. I'm like, so that doesn't make any sense that you would even say like, well, no, it's all worked out. It's all worked out. Like, it's all like, you know, I'm like, no, of course. I'm like, yeah. And so he was just laughing because I'm like, yeah, like that's the first, like you'd have to, in order to.
Yeah. And that's the funny thing for me is I know all this because I was born and raised hardcore fundamental Christian, so I know the Bible.
Sorry to hear that. If it's I mean, there's good aspects and there's like, but it can go bad. Like
but I know the lifestyle. I know it all.
So you know it all. So that when you talk to somebody, you're like, yeah.
It's not like I'm coming from a place where I just, you know, my favorite thing is when people say, why are you so angry at God? Why? I'm like, I'm not.
Right.
I mean, like
there's a difference between someone saying like I don't believe in that and say like I don't believe, like I don't adhere to the principles and believe in Hinduism, right? But I'm not angry with Hindu people. Like I'm not like I have no angst. I don't, you know, like you know what I mean? It doesn't mean so. Yeah, there's a lot. It's unfortunate because it's really interesting because I was just reading like the C.S. Lewis, you know, who did the Narnia. I was just reading like he has a space series and he explores some really philosophical concepts about like morality and different things like in that space series. Like he really, it's fascinating. Like he goes to this other planet and there's like another Adam and Eve on this planet and he's like thrown into the mix or whatever. But there's is
this Mormonism? What are you talking about?
What? Right? I know, right? I know the planet thing. No, he's just a fantasy writer and threw in the, you know, the theology and philosophy. But I know, right? Yeah, going to the other planet. There you go. See, you're trying out the bit. You gotta try it out.
Well.
But you know, I was struck by how like his thought process. If you read a lot of his other writings and stuff like that, like he was willing to go in and have discussions, you know, and he had thought through a lot of different things. And there's a lot of philosophers that are like, oh, you know, you'll talk to them about him and they're like, oh, his arguments are weak and this and that and whatever. But the whole point is like, he was willing to dive in there and really think about it. And the discussion,
you have to.
Right. And so he wasn't just like, you shut up, you know, like, you know, so something has happened about fundamentally about the way, and I think it's across the board, like, so like, you know, culturally, I guess, but like, I just feel like people don't want to talk anymore. Like what we're doing right now, there's probably people out there that are like cringing and just like, you know what I mean? Like
they're talking
like,
about
this
religion.
is a normal conversation. Like you and I are friends. Like we're not like, we can come from two different perspectives. It's okay. Like it's not, it doesn't mean, you know, I mean, I'm fairly sure like somebody, you know, once they hear me talk about, oh my gosh, I didn't know his dad was a pastor. I'm not following him as an artist anymore. He hates me or he, you know, like, or whatever. I'm sure that's going to happen.
My dad
was
a pastor too.
Well, there you go. See?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sure people are, but I'm sure I'm going to get that. Like people will be like, I'm sure he hates me. And because people have had that in my whole life. They said, well, I guess you hate me. And I'm like, no, no. In fact, it's the opposite. I would step in front of a bus to save your life. Absolutely. Hands down. I would, you know? Yeah. And so like, so it's interesting, but I think we gotta be able to talk, man. You gotta be able to talk and people I yell at the street preachers, man. I yell at them. And it's the same situation as you where I grew up with it. So they're like quoting things. I'm like, it's out of context. And they're like, I'm like, you're taking that out of context. And they'll be like, well, I'll be like, that's the second part of Paul's argument where he's saying this, and this. I'm like, it's out. You're not any. And I'm like, people are not listening to you because you're a jerk, not because they don't want to listen, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it does. It's there's so, and that's the thing too. There's so many different types of people. You know, the funny thing for me is people. I find it humorous when people they find out something about me, like my views on God or whatever,
right?
And they immediately assume that
everything else,
like I must be a bad person or an evil person or whatever.
Right,
and,
right, or that you couldn't be moral, or that you don't love your kids, or that you don't.
And it's like, and it's like. It's so interesting to me that I have to even explain things.
Right.
And you know, and to be honest, like, and
I get that too, though. I get that the other way too.
People will be offended when I say this. But you know what, whatever, you know, maybe
I love this.
Maybe you're not going to listen to this whole podcast or whatever. That's fine.
Right. They'll take the clip
but I like having conversations with, you know, we can have another talk sometime about this. It'd be kind of interesting, but the truth is, you know, when it comes to like Christianity, for example, there's like over 33,000 different sects of Christianity. Yeah. And they can't agree on anything.
Right. Yep.
Which doesn't do well for the you know, the credibility of their God.
Sure. I could see that.
And most Christians do not know anything about
Absolutely.
Christianity.
I just said to my son, like, he was asking me about it, and I told him, I said 99.99999% of people who claimed they're Christians have never read their Bible.
And they don't know anything about it. They don't know anything about the history. They don't know anything about when it was written, who wrote it, why, how it was compiled, how it relates to Judaism and how Judaism relates to Zoroastrianism and all these different things. They know nothing. They don't even understand the relationship from the New Testament to this Jesus character. Or any of it. So it's funny because it wasn't until I didn't know any of that stuff either when I was a Christian. It wasn't until I call it being born again. But,
I'm sure they love that. Right.
Yeah. But it wasn't until then that I actually really dug deep into the Bible and in religion in general, because I needed to understand how to be able to talk to my dad, who tells me that it's my, they can't sleep at night because they're worried about me and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, hey, and I try. And so I've had to learn everything I can to actually understand it. And so I find most times I end up talking with Christians. Within a few seconds, I'm like, man, you don't know diddly squat about what you're talking about. And it's interesting. It's a really interesting thing. But again, like I said, I grew up with my entire life with it. And I just, and I can be very, very honest about it. I believed because I was raised that way.
Oh, sure.
And I didn't question it.
Which is normal.
I did have questions. I did have questions, but you know, I always had questions about it. But I mean, I also just 100% you believe in your parents. And when you're a kid, for me anyways, my dad was like a god to me. And whatever my dad wouldn't lie to me, and I don't think that's how it actually is, but and I don't look at it as if he was lying to me. He was genuine for what he believes.
That's right.
But as a kid, I didn't question it. Is from that perspective, it was more about, certain things just did not make sense. Like, like, okay, wait, I don't understand. Like, so one thing that was really funny to me, and I don't want to go too long with this because we're only 2 hours, but
no, it's good. Yeah, it's good.
One thing that was really funny to me that when I was a kid, I told my dad, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. And he's like, what? I'm like, the God of the Old Testament doesn't seem like the same God is the God in the New Testament.
Right.
And he was like,
this argument actually is coming up quite a bit, like in the past, like 10 years, people have been talking about this a lot.
And it's like, and it's just funny because the more I look into it, the more I study it, and the more I listen to rabbis, and I talk it was really interesting. But it's interesting that as a kid, I was like understanding this doesn't make any sense. But it was just funny because it was mostly like, just don't worry about that, like kind of a thing. And that happens a lot, I think, with it can be confusing and it can be whatever. But my perspective when I was a kid was, basically like this is I believed in everything. Like every single thing, 100%. In that was because that's how it was. You're raised to be that way, and
and it was like don't question it, don't like.
Well, then that's being unfaithful, and that's
right. Yeah, sure.
But anyways, I don't want to get too far in this. I have real quick before we go because I do want to show you some fan art. And this is a long podcast, but who cares? People, if you want,
let's do it, man. Let's do it. I told you it's gonna go long. I knew, because we it's like two talkers getting together,
Yeah, I don't care at all. This is what the whole point is.
Yeah,
this is the whole point. But anyways, I have two questions for you from fans.
All right.
So this first question is from Paula Petlawani. And let me play this for you.
Oh, nice. You're going to play it.
Hi, this is Paula Petlawani from Cincinnati, Ohio. And my question is, how do you decide on the background of your portraits or caricatures? Is it something that you have visualized from the beginning? And how do you deal with the space surrounding your subject to enhance your piece? Thank you.
That's a good question. That's a nice, like, normally the questions are not as targeted as that. That's a really good one. Or it's like, what brushes do you use or something,
Yeah.
No, that's a good one. Yeah, I mean, I think like context plays a huge role in, like, this would be my answer. Like, context plays a huge role in what you're doing. So a value, like we're talking about values, value will look completely different. Like a mid-range value will look completely different on over top of a black background as opposed to a light background or something. The simplest way is like, if it's on a light background, it'll look darker. If it's, but I've found that you in terms of like the color you use or like what you put down for that and stuff like that, I've had a lot of different sort of motivations for that. Sometimes it's the color that I want to come through on the painting. Like, I want that to be like the color that I let come through the surface or whatever. Other times I've wanted it to emphasize like the sort of like make the person, go back into the background by making it more of a similar color. Sometimes I've chosen the opposite one to help them come forward. So like the best way that I usually describe it to people is like, you could have a portrait or like a something that has a massive area of just dead space, right? And that is like that's wrong compositionally, supposedly, but what does it do? It makes the person uncomfortable, right? So if your portrait is of a person crying in the corner and you have a ton of space next to them, well, that helps convey the message. So for me, it's all about, I think one of the things that an artist told me a long time ago that was very helpful was have an idea and know the name of the painting before you paint it. Like, know what you're trying to say, basically, is what they were saying. Like, know what you're trying to do and what you're trying to emphasize. And then all of those technical decisions about what the background should be, like this and that, it's all fed by that overarching idea of what you want to get across as an artist. So like, if you had a movie that you were making and you have to like distill that movie down into like a couple of sentences, right? And then so every decision you make, technically or whatever, character wise, all that has to feed that idea, and it can deviate slightly or whatever, but it needs to move you towards that goal. So I think that's probably the best way that I could describe like my thinking about that, because it's always different. And you're probably the same. It's always different. It just depends on the situation and all that, but it's all fed by that overall feel and what you want the viewer to experience when they're looking at that. And you need to think through that. What would be the best way to express that? How could I make the best technical choice that could kind of bolster my idea? So,
yeah. And I 100% agree with that. And I think, definitely the concept is important. For me, it's like, usually it's an illustration and for a magazine, and you're already working for someone else. And so a lot of times they already tell you what, like this kind of background needs to be here, or whatever, or we're going to have text here. So this has to be light enough so the text can pop out, or it has to be dark enough so the text can pop out. So those are completely different things that come into play.
Yeah.
But like, if I'm doing a painting of someone just for myself or whatever, the background must complement the person that I'm painting. And so like, I might do a red underpainting and I'm using like a limited palette and all like, so that everything's going to have harmony no matter what. And if I pull everything out from that background, some of that red's going to pop through everywhere.
Yeah.
There's going to be unity and harmony, and everything's going to feel like it belongs together. So it doesn't really matter. What I would say is the background, I always want the background to complement. I don't want it to distract. I was just talking with a student just yesterday, and they handed in their painting, and the background was just really a saturated violet. And
it stole the show, huh?
Well, and then the painting, the person was a real saturated, like almost orangey.
Yeah.
And they told me that they were trying to do a complementary color thing. And I told them, I said, I get that. And that is something that works, but I would desaturate that violet and cool it, because then it'll make the person's going to pop more. And now it's like a choir with instead of everyone singing together, you've got like 30 people all singing different songs.
Right. Like loudly.
Yeah. And it's like, that's not working.
Right.
So
right.
There's got to be some kind of a balance in order to, you know, because I mean, yeah, it's getting our attention. It's very bam, bam.
Right.
But like, you know, is it complimenting? Is it
right?
You know, like, yes, it could be a violet, but maybe we should push it back a little bit just to like make sure that the point of the person, because what's happening is, even though there's a very, very bright saturated background and the character is very saturated, he's getting lost in the image.
Right. And it might be great. Like the painting might be great, but it's like what the piano player, like in the song you're talking about, might be great, but it's getting drowned out by all the stuff that's like, one of the things that was very helpful for me was like doing some audio engineering. I have experimented with it. I'm not like, you know, my brother and I did like a funny album, like a rock album together and stuff like that. We just had some fun with it and stuff. But one of the things I noticed about that was that you would EQ the individual elements to fit together. So like, and I remember like when I was in a band when I was younger, when we would go record, he would play the guitar track, the engineer. And this is when I first started kind of understanding that concept. And I said, why does my guitar sound so crappy? And because he was just playing me that, I said, it sounds tinny and crappy. And it's like got no like thickness to it. You know? And he's like, oh, wait. So then he turns on everything else. It was like, boom, boom, you know, like when everything was hitting. And he said, the arrangement of the song has to be in a way where the bass and the bass drum and the bass itself and all of that needs to hit together. And so that it all fills. He's like, but if I make your guitar like full spectrum, he's like, it's just going to sound like noise. And he said it won't sound tight and good. So it's the same for a painting. But what we tend to do at first, when we're first learning art, is like, I always say to students, it's kind of like shooting a mortar. And I'm like, it needs to be a little bit farther for you to go. You need to go a little bit farther to make, and then they take the mortar and shoot it like 2 miles too far. Right. And I'm like, whoa, now it needs to be shorter. Then they go 2 miles too short. And so it's like this, like finding the subtlety and like nailing that exact, like, you know, the background, like, you know, like it's too purple, you know, it's not that you can't have it purple. It's just, it's too much. Like you tend to, you know, it must be like chefs too, right? When somebody's learning to cook and they're just like, add salt. They're like, blah, you know, like add spice, add this. I'm going to add every ingredient.
I always say like being an artist that's why I think if I wasn't an artist, I could be a chef.
Dude,
I always think about that.
Come on, man. I make souffles all the time. Like we have a lot of similarities.
Like it's just like, because it's exactly, and I explain to people with caricature and exaggeration is like exaggeration, it's like a pizza. Like pizza, who doesn't love pizza? But a pizza, as perfect as it is, can be destroyed if you have too much. If there's too much sauce,
right?
It's too much.
Right.
Or if the sauce is terrible,
right?
It's gonna be, you know, it's gonna ruin the whole pizza,
right?
You need just the right amount of that sauce, and too much can mess it up, and not enough can mess it up.
Right.
It can be too dry, or it can whatever.
Yeah, that's right.
So exaggeration, I always say, is kind of like the sauce on a pizza. Like
that's a good analogy, man.
Put a lot of sauce on there, but it might ruin it. You have to know how to control the sauce.
Right.
And if there's not enough sauce, then it's like, this is boring.
It's boring. Right. Like, exactly. It's that fine. And that's hard to learn, man. And that is somewhat subjective, like it is, but there's like a subjective area, and then there's an area outside where every professional would agree, like, you've gone beyond the bounds of what's good, you know, like there's, you know, like there's chefs that'll be like, well, I would like a little less sauce. It's like, well, that's fine. But then there's pizzas where it's like every chef's that tastes like,
this pizza is great. Just don't wear a white t-shirt when you eat it.
Right.
You're going to get sauce everywhere.
But we tend to do that. We're like, I've got these ingredients. I got to use them, you know? And I used to play with guys, like when I was playing guitar, like, and they were playing with another group of musicians or whatever. And they were like, oh man, this is my moment to shine. Like I'm playing with these other musicians. And then it comes to their solo part and they're not thinking about the music. They're not thinking about what fits. They're not thinking about, they're just like playing every note. They can play, you know, just like, and we're like, whoa, dude, that doesn't even go with the song. Like, you know, what's going to impress them more is you playing something that just matches perfectly with what the vibe of the song is, or what the, you know, so that's that should help. I think that should help her.
Okay, that's awesome. Here's one more question from Dustin Clark.
Oh, I know Dustin. I know Dustin.
Oh no, why isn't it playing?
We could make up a question. If we could make up a question for Dustin if it doesn't play.
What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna listen to it because you're not gonna be able to hear it.
Okay.
But I'll listen to his question. And then,
by the way, we've got the same headphones. I can see this. You got those ATHM 50s, right?
I have no idea. But
those are good, man. Like if you were going to do audio stuff, those are the ones, man.
Let's see. Okay, let's see. I'm going to listen to his question.
Hey, this is Dustin Clark, and my message for Jonathan Hardesty is, when are we going to hang out, dude? Now that you're in Texas, we got to go do some sketching.
Oh, you could hear him?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Is that it? Is that it?
I guess that's it. When are we gonna...
Dustin. He can write me. Like he can, maybe he has, maybe he's written me and I haven't. So I will say this. Like I'm trying to work on it. Like, but I am, it's like, it's hard. Well, actually you had to write me again. You were like, hey, remember, I was like, oh yeah, I got to send you that stuff. I do have trouble. Like, and I have like my phone to help me keep track of things and stuff like that. But the problem is, I mean, it's probably the same for you. It's like ding, 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 like all day, you know? And so I'm like, and it's not because I'm super popular or something. It's just because I've got a lot of interest in a lot of things. And so I'm in like, you know, I don't know. I just feel like I miss out. My friends will be like, I haven't heard from you for like, 4 days. I'm like, man, I'm sorry. I've got to go through. I get a lot of messages. Like I get a lot of messages just about everything, and my kids or whatever, and so like my family, if I see them, I answer them right away, but even they get like accidentally pushed down. So I always feel bad. So when he's like, hey, where are we going to hang out? I'm like, he might've asked me to do that. Like, I don't even know.
That's funny. Well, it's that time, folks. Let's look at some fan art real quick. John, are you ready to face the truth? Are you ready?
I think
people always ask, like, why do you call it face the truth? It's really, it's just to be honest, I don't really, it's not about the caricature part. What it is, to be honest.
Oh, wait, they're doing caricatures of me.
Well, not just that. Like, some people do realistic type portraits.
Okay. Oh, dude, yes. I didn't know you were doing this.
But I call the podcast Face the Truth because I like to try to be as honest as possible.
Yeah.
I like to have real conversation.
Yep.
And also it's a play on when I was first getting started when I was like 20 years old, I called my business Face the Truth. And I had a logo and all this kind of stuff way back in the day. And it just kind of was one of those things that I grew out of it. And it was like, was trying to be a caricature artist, and I had little business cards made. It said Face the Truth.
Yeah.
And so then when I decided to do a podcast, I was like, that would be a kind of a cool podcast name.
It's a good one.
So,
it's good.
That's the only reason. But it's just funny. I think it's funny. I've done it a few times now. I'm like, are you ready to face the truth?
I am. I'm ready to face the truth, man. Let's do this.
Let's do this.
Are you ready to unfiltered truth? I want to see
how you really look, how other people perceive you.
I mean, it's really funny. My wife always laughs because yes. I love it so much. These are so good. It's really funny because I always tell, like, my wife hates when I say this, but I always say, like, me and my family, like, we're like peasants. We look like peasants. You know what I mean? Like my wife has like an Italian side, and they're all like beautiful. Like her side of the family, they're all like beautiful. And I'm like, like we're peasants. Like this is it, man. This is it. This is
by Ray Shipman, by the way.
This is good, man. This totally is like, I love it so much. And just so you know, Ray, I've got like glasses that are similar. That these particular glasses, they actually glow in the dark. They cost me like $10, but they glow in the dark. I got them from Zenny, man. Like lenses and all, it's like $10.
Wow,
can you believe that? Isn't that weird? But this is awesome. I absolutely love that. I love I do have. I'm 41 now. I do have a little bit of that back fat. Like if you go back to that other one, like see that, like that on the neck. Like I have a little bit of that squashing on the neck.
I just check to see if
like,
yeah,
I love it.
No, I need to lose weight, man. I used to have a dick, and now I just have a vagina with a huge. I mean, I gotta fix this. So,
You got to start doing MMA, man. It just the weight comes off. You just get like big guys like smashing you, and somehow it just burns the. It's good. You should try it.
oh man, this is by Pablo Salas.
Nice. This is kind of like I'm thinking like what you were saying, like the Toulouse-Lautrec kind of like what is he's seeing in me,
Yeah, it's cool.
It is cool. I like it. And actually what's funny is like I could see like in a raw sense, like, yeah, it's there. You know what I mean? Like so like, and I don't mean this like if I could draw like a very simple like this shape, my kids would be like, yeah, that kind of is like you. They would recognize that in me. You know what I mean?
like this. It's like it's pretty.
I like it too.
Very it's very straightforward and very just. I mean, the lines are just awesome.
I love it. I would like to see this, like if they were to take this further, like I'd like to see the next steps. I want to see it like develop. Not that I don't like this. I like this, but I would be really curious to see what happens after this in the process.
For sure.
That's fun though. But that is me. Nice. Nice.
Cool.
What I'm trying to see, what is that?
This is by Dan Johnson, by the way.
Dan Johnson. Nice, man. So that's in oils too.
Yeah.
I want to see that. Yeah. Nice. I love it.
It's pretty
That's
nice.
really good. And actually like that nose structure of mine, like I kind of have like a whatever that deviated septum is, whatever that is. So you see how like the highlights like a little bit off, like they were like nailing that. But this is good, man. This is really good. Like, and also just painting wise, like the simplified structure of the shadows and all that. It's good.
Yeah, it's nice.
I remember when I had the picture. That is my old studio in Pennsylvania. But I'm like, where's that picture from? Like, I don't know.
That's awesome.
I'm like, man, nice. This is awesome.
That's fun.
This is like me. This is like me. Oh, you're good. This is me. Like if you could paint from the inside out, like this is me, like 100%.
Oh,
like
this
my
is
wife
by
would be like,
Paula Petlowani.
Nice. I love it.
She's the one that asked the question, by the way.
Oh, nice. Right. Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So like the background here, like those kind of textural elements and stuff like that, you can use that kind of stuff to draw people's attention where you want them to draw it. Like you can have a strategy for all that stuff, and if you want them to be drawn more to the body, see they're kind of like pointing at the body right now, like all those textural elements. You could have them kind of be pointed at the face, or you could do like a number of things. But I love this. I love this. It's fun, man. I love like when I see I love this. Dang, these are good, man. Like people, I had no idea that you were doing this. Like, and I think I saw you mention it or something, but I had forgotten. So these are good, man. People are putting work in on this. I love it.
This is by Jacques Lemonnier.
Nice,
Lemonnier.
Dude. Better like the direct, like that sort of Paul Kelly kind of like wood cutting like style of like pencil. I love that. This is better than I could do with that. 100%.
Yeah, he's got great structure, great cross hatching.
I love it. Like the mouth area is great. Like it's just, that it's so good. Like, and even like the way the glasses are sitting and stuff, like, and that's totally my nose, like 100% my nose. But I love it because stuff is exaggerated. And this is something that I'm not good at. So it's like all those little elements are exaggerated, but it's so real, and it's what it is,
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Like there would be no doubt that anybody that knows me, that would be me 100%. There's no doubt. Like
that's nice.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. I love it. I love it. They have like my more trimmed beard though. This the tiny brush. I love this. Dude, this is so so that must have been that photo that I must have had that neck thing, like the neck, like it's showing up, man. It's a I don't look at that part, but these are so good. I love this so much. Like this is so fun, man.
And this is by Graziano De Carlo.
Awesome. It's so good, that expression. I love with the tiny brush.
You're like in the middle of a demo with a room full of people watching, and you just realize you shit your pants.
Yes. And I feel like this is how my kids see me, because like I'm so huge compared to my 4-year-old. Like she must feel like this, like when she looks at me like with the brush, like she must just feel like, you know, he's painting like this little painting, and this massive dude. That's really funny. I love it. I love it. Nice. But see, listen, I'm proud of this, because like there's a lot of happy imagery that's coming up, you know, which is good. It's not me like being sour and this is awesome.
This is by Ivan Pizzolo.
Okay. Oh, Pizzolo. Okay. I see that up in the corner. Yeah, nice. Yeah. Awesome, man. This is great.
Yeah, I try to name the files with their names, that way I don't.
Right. This has got kind of like a Seurat kind of like Van Gogh thing going on, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I love the layers of that.
Funny.
I like that they let the drawing come through in the teeth too.
And and it just looks like there's a party going on, like there's confetti everywhere or something.
Yes, that's my life, man. That's my life.
Yay!
For real, I like that. We have fun. Yes, nice, cool. Awesome.
By Lester West.
Lester West sees like I this is like the serious side of me. Everything else, this is what I was saying. This is like the serious expression where I'm like, you know, maybe I'm getting like I'm on my way to punishing my child. Like when they see this, like it's like I'm noticing something that's punishment worthy, but I haven't quite decided yet, you know. And that's what this one is to me. That's like it's so that's you know what's so funny, man. It's so interesting, like to see people paint me. Like I've painted so many people, but I haven't had a lot of people paint or draw me. Like I think this is the most, like just now that you showed me, is probably the most that I've had of people actually painting or drawing me. So have you had a lot of people draw and paint you? I guess with the podcast you have, right?
Oh, not for the podcast, really. There's been a couple, but like some people have drawn me with my guests, which is kind of funny. Cool. But yes, I get a lot of people that draw me, and then they want me to draw them back.
Right.
But I don't have the time, and I feel bad.
I know. It's the worst. You wish you could, but I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is fun, man. This is awesome. Yes. I love it.
This is awesome.
I love it. It's so good, man.
This is Ezekiel Moreno. You know, this almost reminds me a little bit of Dominic Monaghan or I can't. He was like one of the hobbits in the Lord of the Rings.
Oh yes, dude. Do you know what's funny? Okay, so about that, like people have said I look like him, but people have also said that I look just like Mr. Tumnus, like in the movies.
You do. That's hilarious.
And
Narnia.
Yes, everybody said that that's like spot on. But then also, do you remember Dirk Nowitzki? So Dirk Nowitzki played for the Dallas Mavericks. Like I don't think he doesn't play anymore, but
I don't know.
But it's this guy, and he's kind of like, he's real big, but it's real funny because I do look like him, but but he's not a good looking man, you know. And so I'll say to people, they'll be like, they would always come up to me and they'd be like, dude, you look, when he was like at his height, you know, of playing ability and everything. Everybody's like, you look like Dirk Nowitzki in Texas. And I was like, yeah. I was like, I look just like him, right? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, he's not a good looking man. And they're like, you know, like because they don't know what to say, you know. I'm like, it's all right, man, I understand.
That's so funny.
But anyways, but it totally does, like there's a feel to that, and I love it. But I like the brow
it's like someone saying, dude, you look just like Marlon Brando, and you're like, which one?
Right.
Early Brando or the not so good,
right?
Like, yeah.
I could care less like about being like super attractive, and so like it's really funny. So I always like to mess with people like that. I'm like, and I like I said, my family's, we're a bunch of peasants, man. We're okay with it. We've developed like humor as a way to counteract it. This is awesome.
This is by Lars Eric Robinson, but this is like, hey, you guys.
Yes, it is. It's total chunk.
Yeah.
It's total chunk. I love it. I love it so much.
That's
it's so good
funny.
though. I like to see. This is interesting to me too, because I haven't done self-portraits where I've exaggerated my own features. So, but I look at them in the mirror all the time. So it's, and I see it and I kind of have it in my head, and I've done self-portraits before. So this is actually interesting to see where it gets pushed and how they decide. And the common things that come up too are really interesting. Like, I mean, it makes sense, like the ears sticking out and like a longer, like sort of like like a stretched almond head, you know, like that kind of thing. Those are things that I expected, but also certain things about the smile and certain things about like, it's fascinating to see people pick up on that and then roll with it. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and Lars, I like the green stuff that's going on in the face as well.
Yes,
I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I like the color. Yeah, I like the color, like the color, like kind of vibration or whatever that's there. I like the background too. Like the background worked for that too.
Yeah,
it's good. I love it.
This is by Dominic Zeilinger.
Nice. Nice.
Very funny.
The lip is like.
Again, it's. I have to look at this picture again, but this is like, oh, I shit my pants. Like, it's exactly the same.
But
like,
there's no folds on the neck. He spared me the folds on the. No, totally is like you know, this the other one was me getting like being stern with my kids, and this one is my dad about to, like, you know, spot me doing something, like, you know, that's probably what this one this picture was. I love it. It's awesome. I like the simplification of this one is so good.
This is by Daniel Beat.
It's so good, man. That's like it blows my mind.
Almost like Steven Silver a little bit in there.
Yeah, like Steven Silver, or like who's the guy that played Gandalf?
Yeah.
What's his name? You know who I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Great actor, but like, yeah.
I'm blanking on his name.
Yeah, I'm blanking. I couldn't. He's like so famous too, but I can't remember. But yeah, what blows my mind is seeing, you know, people, and you can do this. See, I can't do this, and these guys can do it too. But like to how far you can take it, but how it still resonates. Like understanding what to hold on to, and what to let breathe a little bit, like in terms of the features and stuff. That's a fascinating thing. But I wonder, I'm like, is this me like a little bit older? This might be me like older, like, you know. And
I also really I love the color in the like there's
on the shadow side.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool things happening.
There's a lot of cool things. I see, this is an example of like how they're kind of handling the texture would be an example of some of the things that I've found with like that breakup pattern is something I found doing those texture studies, like being able to kind of not have to put every little hair on the inside. It's really just like the silhouette and stuff like that is making a difference. But
follow, you fools.
Yeah.
Frodo.
Yeah.
Frodo Baggins. Flames of Uldan.
That's pretty good, man. That's pretty good. I like that. But right, don't I look like it? Oh, nice, man. Dang, that's spot on.
Yeah, this is
that's spot on. And this is an example where we were talking about how you have like you can draw out the portrait by having like the portrait is desaturated, but the background is saturated, so it actually creates that difference. But if both were saturated, like what you were saying, it kind of wouldn't work. But this is like carefully observed and like spot on. This is really, really good. And look, you can even see like I probably should trim my mustache there, which is so common, like on that side, like to get it out of my way while I'm eating and stuff, you know. Dude,
this is by Christine Varadi, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, this is great, man. This is like this is really well observed and just that's spot on. I mean, that's dang. Even the leopard, those were another pair those were $6 from Zenny. Those leopards, like clear blue leopard ones, you know.
This episode of Face the Truth is sponsored by
I know, right? It's I know, right? For real. Oh, but no, that's great. That's so good. Oh, so is that too, man.
Yeah,
they got that.
I like looking at the morph between this and this. Boof.
Yes.
Kind of cool. This is by Patrick Limegruber.
Patrick Limegruber. Okay,
Limegruber.
Nice.
The villain from Die Hard, I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Something like that.
This is good. Yeah. Like you said, the contortion or like the stretching of certain things and like the narrow, like, but it still reads, man.
Yeah.
It blows my mind. I love it. I like the chunky like handling of the glasses too. Like it's a very like direct sort of feel for the glasses, like just like they kind of had like full opacity.
Yeah. No,
yeah, there's a lot here that's the strokes are just put down like full opacity and it works. I like it. And the shadow side of the hair, It's super simple. That's an example of what we were talking about. That's ultra simple. That side of the head is ultra simple, and they just put the silhouette in properly and this is cool. It's really good. Man, there's a lot. Nice.
This is by Mark Young.
This is awesome, dude. This is I mean, I can tell, like, you can tell when somebody draws and it's just like easy for them, you know. It's like easy, I can nail this. Like, this is, I do this all day. Like, that's what this looks like. That just looks like effortless to me. Like somebody that's just like, yeah, I've got more drawing chops than you. Like, I'm good, you know. It's so good, you know. I love it. Like, even the thickness of the lines, and like, man, that's super.
It reminds me of live caricature art stuff.
Yes.
The big thick pencils, and
where they have like a Sharpie sometimes, and they can just do everything with one Sharpie or something. Like, yeah, totally. I love it. Oh, nice.
This is hilarious.
This is Dustin. This is Dustin. Yeah, yeah, man. Dude, listen, we'll hang out. That he's painting what he knows about me and my personality. That's what he's painting there. That's 100%. That's like him knowing me. And
I love this, man.
I love it too. He's so good, man. He's really good. Like, seriously, he does stuff like, and he always has a story to tell. And see, this one, it's like he gives you a little bit of the story of who I am. Like with this one, I think it's good.
Well, and he also sent in these sketches too, which is pretty funny.
Nice.
So it's cool looking at it. Yeah.
These are great. He's so good, man. Like, he really is. Like, and he's been working hard just for a while. And I remember he took a class of mine and he was just soaking up that knowledge, but he's just spent, since then, I've been keeping up with him, and he's killing it, man. He's just got a different way of looking at things, and a different way of capturing it, which I love. It's really, really good. It's so good.
Oh, that's the last one, actually.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So thank you so much, everyone, for sending.
That's
drawings.
amazing.
It was really cool, and we've been talking for 2 hours and 40 minutes. This is crazy. But you know what? I'm going to leave it all in because this is the way it is. And
I love it.
The reason I do this podcast is a lot of artists love to listen to it while they work. And I think we had a really awesome, fun discussion, and I really enjoyed it a lot, man.
Dude, we covered the gambit, man.
Yeah.
We're like
so
talking theology, philosophy. We're talking about modern art. We're talking about like comedy. Like, see, this is what I love though. I live for this. Like, I really do. Like, I just love.
Well, that's what a podcast is supposed to be.
Yeah.
So, and so I really appreciate you taking the time, because it was really fun to talk with you. Before we end this bad boy, is there anything that you want to promote or let people know going on or anything like that?
Sure. Yeah. I've got a portrait class. I'm going to be doing a live workshop for Schoolism. That's coming up on April 24th. You can go to schoolism.com to see that. Got a couple classes there. I've got one on textures. We were talking about that. And I've actually got one called Essentials of Realism too, which all those fundamentals that we were talking about from the classical training, I try to condense them down and get that like bite-sized, so that people, regardless of what kind of discipline you want to move towards, that you can you can gain a lot from that, and kind of like steal my foundation that I learned from there and kind of use it however you want. That's my idea, at least. So those are the main things that are going on right now. I've got Instagram. You can find me on Instagram, just at John Hardesty. You can see like the textures that I'm doing if you're interested in that. And I've got other things going on. I'm thinking about, we were talking about this, thinking about doing some NFT sales, and I've got some other painting actually stuff that I'm working on that maybe I can talk to you about that later, because it's a weird idea, interesting idea, and but that's further down the road. But yeah, just jonathanhardesty.com is my website. There's Instagram. You can kind of keep up with what I'm doing, and those two classes are probably the most recent things that are going on. So
sweet. Yeah. And that's awesome. And we might as well just, I'm on Schoolism as well.
Do it.
Check out Schoolism, because if you're listening to this and you haven't, I'm always trying to promote it. There's so many awesome artists on Schoolism. Basically everyone that's on there is like legit in their field. And so you can learn one-on-one with some of the best storyboard artists, or, concept art, whatever you want to, so it's pretty awesome. And I have a couple classes in here.
Dude, his classes are good.
Nah,
and he's a beast of a painter. Like, don't even, man. Don't even. You got to tell him the truth. You said you were an honest man. You got to tell him. It's freaking awesome. He's good. He's super good.
No,
if you want to absorb his superpowers,
in all seriousness, though, I really enjoy I've been teaching with Schoolism for like, I think since 2006 or 7. I can't remember exactly, but so it's been a while. It's been a minute. And I enjoy it. I really enjoy it. So so fun. Also there's subscription too. So if you can't afford to do a one-on-one class, you can do the subscription and you can take a bunch of different
get access
classes.
to everything, which is crazy.
Yeah. So anyways, everyone check out schoolism.com. It's pretty awesome. And thank you everybody for if you've stuck it out this whole time, you deserve, like, next time I see you, we're gonna go somewhere and get a drink, okay? If you stuck this out, we're gonna go hang out and have a good talk.
That's right.
But anyways, thank you everybody for the support and for checking out the podcast, and we'll all see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, man. This was a blast.
All right, see you, man.
See you.
You want answers? The truth shall set you free. I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.